Welcome to Shakeshero, the podcast that bridges the gap between you and all things Shakespeare. I'm Chloe Baldwin, our professional actor and resident Shakespeare nerd who thinks that Shakespeare, when done well, should be able to be accessible to anyone.
I'm Paul Stafford, our skeptical outsider, who is going to decide for himself if he thinks it's true.
Ooh.
And today, we're breaking down a super heavy play. It is the 2013 National Theater production of Othello, directed by
Robin Lough.
Yeah. And man, I think me and Chloe specifically have a history with this play and have connected over our conversations about it, in the past when we first met each other.
We do. It's specifically the reason we first started talking about Shakespeare and kind of having these conversations that turned into us talking about this and turned into this podcast, really.
Yeah, and I had trouble at that time. I had trouble differentiating whether I had trouble understanding Shakespeare or whether Othello was a problematic play. And now I feel comfortable saying Othello is just a problematic play.
I feel like at the time, the conversation we were having was I think the main tenet of it was you were like, oh, Othello's actions don't really make sense. And it was me trying to be like, no, they do if you look at them this way. And I feel like we both got on that level of oh, it makes sense why Othello did all these things. But I think now we're at this deeper question of why are we doing this play and why does this story need to be told and why?
I slightly disagree with that. I never got on the board where I thought it made sense that Othello did what he did all the way through the play, but I did have an easier time empathizing with him, given more context or given more clarity over why other people were doing what they're doing or what the general context of the play was. And so that was our avenue into discussing Shakespeare together, but come to find out after doing it for longer, for all throughout our since we've known each other, and then also through doing this podcast today, we have a more of a platform and a base and a
good production.
We have a good amount of tools to talk about it with each other now.
Yeah.
And still, I'm this production was amazing, and I still feel the same way I felt about it. And
right.
So I think I have a higher resolution of what and of the realism that can exist within a lot of these circumstances, but I still find myself being mad at the same characters for the same reasons.
Yeah, I think the place I'm at right now is I definitely want to question you about some of the things that you're feeling you're not clicking into or that don't make sense in the play. But I'm at a similar place as you are right now that I didn't expect to be at after watching this, where I feel uncomfortable is a small word to describe what I'm feeling right now. It's I feel I feel like there's almost something I can latch onto and then it slips out of my fingers.
Yeah.
I feel I don't know, maybe a sense of distrust with this play right now, or a sense of I don't know. This was a great production, and I feel I don't know what to do, or I don't know which direction to steer it. Usually with a production, I'm well, they should have gone in this direction, or they should have done this, and I'm I don't know where this play wants to land or why.
Yeah.
So I'm especially interested to break it down with you because of that, but I'm definitely feeling I don't know where we're going to land on it, or if we're going to land on it.
You don't have a lot of you're not on solid ground with how you feel about it and
no.
why.
And usually I am. Even with Taming of the Shrew, we went into it and I was I don't know where I'm going to land on this, and then I was I love it. And now we went into it and I was this play's great, and we went into it and now I'm
That's funny. And I feel I don't know if you were feeling exactly this way that I'm about to describe, but I feel I've done that. I really like this thing, and then as soon as I show someone all the flaws in it, and I suddenly am reevaluating because someone is sitting next to me watching it that I know hasn't seen it before. So
it's almost I was focused on the smaller questions of it, could a person manipulate another person to this point? And I think the answer to me, and we could talk about this, is yes. But I think the bigger questions are now what I'm looking at, now that we've gotten past those questions a little bit to some degree, or at least I feel satisfied in my own answers for those. And now I'm asking myself the question of why are we telling this story? And what was Shakespeare intending with the story? And do I trust that? And I think the answer is I don't know if I trust it. And usually I do.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. We were struggling with. So we just watched this production earlier today, and it shook us so much, and we were so unsure of what we thought and why, that we were like, maybe we should like do some more research and like find different points of view about it. And we watched a few videos.
I texted my mentor,
yeah,
my Shakespeare mentor from college, who I freaking love.
We're like, do we need to be like responsible with this? But then we talked about it again, and we're like, that is part of the conceit of this podcast, is like, how much does art need to come to you? And I don't feel like if you do a play or if you do a piece of art, it should stand on its own enough to where you have the tools to understand it, at least on the like enough to have an opinion about it or talk about it. If you have to do a history paper on it before you understand it, I feel like it is lost relevance and either needs updating or just needs to have the caveat that it needs to a piece of companion prose to understand it. And so
I think I would add the other caveat that, like, if there's something we're missing about this play that, like, someone else could add context to, or even just like a good director could make a decision about for production, like, I would like to see that production. But this production specifically, I didn't walk away with it going, this is the answer to Othello.
You're leaving the door open to that there is something that it was trying to say that we just missed it. So
it's very possible.
I was taking it for granted that we were looking real hard and we had tried to attack it from as many angles as we could, and we still couldn't find something. Yes. So
I almost feel like there were too many possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I feel too.
Yeah.
I feel like every time there's the evidence for one thing, there's always some huge piece of evidence that contradicts it. So like, all we're saying is that if there's something this play is saying clearly, or especially that this production is like highlighting, which we felt is an amazing production of this.
Agreed.
We could not find it. And so
or we couldn't pin it down. Like,
yeah.
I'm walking away with it like, just
it's almost about a lot of things.
Right. And the other thing too is that I'm like, what I'm feeling right now is I feel very affected by this piece of art we just watched. Mm-hmm. Maybe that in and of itself is a good thing.
I feel a little bit worried about leaving it at that and being okay with that.
I agree, and
because
that's
I feel like
why
it's
I think
super
this is going to be
easy
a
to just
very
like offend people and be like, it affected you.
No,
awesome.
I agree with you, and that's why I think this is going to be a very complicated and interesting conversation. But I do feel like I don't think there's necessarily inherently a value in that, but I do want to unpack it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It didn't do nothing. That's something.
Nope. The subtitle of this play should be Inception, because Iago is just straight up going around planting seeds in people's mind.
It should be.
And just like and like I'm just imagining Othello and Desdemona like on a train tracks, and he's like, "Why?" And she's like, "'Cause you'll be together." And they get run over by the train.
Don't be afraid. Yeah, no. That's an interesting movie too.
Maybe
why that movie? That's a whole nother podcast.
I said Inception just because Iago's implanting ideas.
No, I just mean
brains.
Why that movie? Why did we tell that movie, Christopher? But
don't get me started. I love Inception.
I know Inception's great.
I was gonna say, what made me think about that is because when Iago was like, "I am not what I am," I'm like, "Are you in Inception right now?"
Oh my god. No, everyone else is. He's freaking Leonardo DiCaprio, and everyone else is getting implanted.
This is hilarious.
Yeah.
But okay, so leaving aside what we think this play is trying to tell the audience, let's just talk about the difficulty in accomplishing the motivations of each character.
Yes.
This is the hardest part I had initially seeing this play, not today, but in my life.
Right.
Like the pitch of this play is like, a revered general is manipulated and led to killing his wife by his
ensign
subordinate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, what are you gonna trick me and like in killing my wife? And like when I saw the play on its face, I, not knowing enough about Shakespeare, maybe the production I saw was lacking in a little bit of clarity, maybe a lot of different things. When I first saw this a couple of times, like, I'm just like, this is just as dumb as I thought it would, and it just makes me mad and sad. Mm-hmm. And then when we first like had our joined experience with this play, was that when we first met, the college I was attending was hosting a Shakespeare company that you were interning for.
And that's how we met.
Calling you intern, but you were a cast member of.
Yeah, like an apprentice-y, acty kind of thing. Yeah,
and so I was part of the production team, so I saw this play 12 times.
Yeah, and I would be backstage, like, you know, wearing my, like, prostitute costume, getting ready to go on for this, like, scene where all the, like, prostitutes are in the background, and he'd be texting me, like, why did Iago do that? Or like, why is Othello listening to him? And I'd be like, I know, like, there's a couple little pieces that I think are being a little, like, glossed over. Like, if you really listen to this one line, maybe, like, it'll help you hook into, like, what the play's trying to say.
Yeah.
But, like, I was like, I can see why you're missing some of the things. Because, you know, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that muddied some of what was happening in that production, I think.
Yeah. So me and you, like, as we first met, you're like, Shakespeare's amazing. Everything's about Shakespeare's amazing. And I'm like, I don't know. And like, that's how these conversations started, because you had all the energy in the world and the like, I was going to say, like, the scholarly background, like, or like the experience background to convince me. And I was analytical and critical, but also open to being convinced.
Right.
So like the floodgates open, and then the conversations just started. And as every night when I thought I understood more, like the first couple productions, it was just me just trying to figure out what's was happening.
Right.
And then we started to, like, the why started to sink in. I started to ask more questions, and then I saw that play. Oh, they did that scene a lot clearer this night than that night. And like all these different things. And by the 12th time, I felt like, oh, I'm a fucking Othello scholar. You know, like I understand enough to ask the questions. And I felt a little bit more emboldened in my analysis that it's not just some, like, super high level words that are above my head. I'm like, every time I ask questions, you're like, I know those are good questions, and we should be making that clear, and we should be doing that. So like, you helped me, like, have a little bit more, like, confidence in the things that I was asking about. And so that kind of, like, led to 2 years later. Now we're doing a fucking podcast.
Hey.
So,
and I was like, oh my God, he's interested in asking questions about Shakespeare. That's hot.
So, but anyway, like we said earlier, like, at first that was just our building our paths or our avenues into talking about Shakespeare. But like, it just so happened that we started off talking about a very difficult one to talk about.
Yes.
And so,
like, we started at, like, AP Shakespeare.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
like,
and now I feel like we're circling back to it, and, like, we've covered all the ground level stuff. Like, I think, we're both very much on the same page about, like, what happens in the play and, like, what the important things are about, like, gender and race and war and all that stuff, and how that influences the characters. But now we're a little deeper, and now we can ask some of the harder questions.
Yeah, I assumed, like a lot of these plays and a lot of other art I've experienced in my life, that, like, once I knew more about it, it would become clearer and my opinions would shift accordingly. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have a 1,000 times more resolution on, like, why and, like, how it's plausible and possible that these characters might do what they do, and I still have a lot of the same emotions. And so that's a kind of like an interesting aspect of this play.
I think that's good, and I think that means that the emotions that you're having are very true. That that something about it is, like, hitting you in the same kind of truthful way that it was before, and that's something deeper that we can grapple with.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll get into it.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's a good play. I don't know. I don't know anymore.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like we could just stop and stay on the overarching, like, how do we find because we can't find a conclusion, like, and we talk about the bigger, broader concepts of the play, but I want to get into it, and then, like, hopefully, like, we can redraw that, recarve, or, like, that rabbit hole.
I know what you mean.
And then people can follow us to the place that we got.
Totally.
And we'll see how that goes.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, like, I wrote down, like, a list of things because we feel like we said before, like, Shakespeare is like a high wire act. Like, sometimes if you don't set up all the right things, all these problems will compound, and then, like, none of these things will make sense.
Right.
And which I described it recently as like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Honestly, like, when you said that, a lot of things clicked into place for me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it was something that I had felt, but I didn't know quite how to articulate. And a Rube Goldberg machine is perfect because did I say Rube Goldberg? Rube Goldberg. Because everything needs to feed into the next thing. And if you lose one of these dominoes, if you lose one of these little pieces, it's like the rest of it just doesn't fall down in the right way.
I agree. That's what it feels like to me, especially for these characters that are doing these most insane things, and again seeing themselves as taking the measured option, or like the most likely, or like like the most reasonable option.
Yeah, you have to, like, it's almost like you're making a maze, and you have to make one of the options so unappealing, or one of the options so appealing that character has to go down that path.
Yeah. You are putting so much pressure on all the paths not to take that you're creating the path of least resistance.
Right.
Which is the thing that I'm saying. So is that resonates with the universe. I always use these like big fucking huge terms that are like sound like I'm trying to be deep, but like that's what I mean. Like truth, like the I'm scared to like go into this deep rabbit hole now, but like if we're depicting realism in a fictional story and we're showing what would happen, where like that's kind of like, if you're not doing like something that's fantasy or even fantasy, you're even Game of Thrones, you're like injecting a fictional element into how it would play out in real life. So like it has to ring true with what could or would be analyzed and valued in humans.
Yeah, and I feel like that especially is what we were talking about when we were first having conversations about this play, which was like,
yeah, like
can you set up the maze?
How would someone do that?
Like, how do you set up the
truthfully?
maze to make it so that the characters go down that path? Because right now it seems like, well, why doesn't Desdemona just talk to her husband? Why doesn't Othello just talk to Desdemona?
Yeah.
Why doesn't Amelia just tell her about the handkerchief? Like,
Yeah.
how do you set it up to make the path of least resistance the actions that happen in the
shit.
play?
Yeah.
Right. And so everything else has to be heightened and clear too.
Yeah.
So
I found myself needing to write down a list of things that you needed to set up in order for this thing to happen, because it would be, the list is surprisingly long, and it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
But this play did it.
They did.
That's the weird part about this, is that we thought everybody did an amazing job, and we're like, and we still are not happy. Maybe we just don't like the play.
Or maybe it's just like uncomfortably tragic. Like we did talk about, we compared this play to Romeo and Juliet, and Romeo and Juliet is a clean tragedy, which sounds sad or sounds cynical, but it's all about like the wrong timing and the wrong place at the wrong time and all of those kind of things.
There's no absolute villains in Romeo and Juliet.
Right.
Iago is clearly through and through like demon, like
yes,
devil.
Exactly.
And to me specifically, even though he was manipulated, the choices Othello make, I find Othello distasteful and villainous.
Right, but I feel like that's because, so in Romeo and Juliet, everybody makes the best choice available to them with the circumstances that they have, and there's more of a question mark, especially with Othello. Like, did he really make the best choice with the circumstance he had?
Yeah, I mean, excluding suicide, because like certain religious beliefs may find suicide to be morally reprehensible, but like excluding suicide, there's nobody makes like things people do are morally questionable, because Romeo is like in a fight with another person that is also has equal like a cause to fight him, and it's a fight, so it's like a fair gamble. Like a fight is considered like, it's not like a murder of somebody who has no ability to fight back. Like that doesn't happen in Romeo and Juliet, and so like we have a slightly easier time weeding through like who we like and why and what we can forgive and all these different things. Not that it's easy, but I feel like it's in a different class than Othello.
Yeah.
So that is the thing we're grappling with Othello. Like, if he's manipulated, how much like that's what I'm saying.
And the other thing with Romeo and Juliet too is like, even though they end up like killing themselves, they're kids. Like they're 14 and 16.
That's true.
And when we were going through that play, a lot of what we were saying was like, the thing we keep forgetting is they're teenagers, they're kids, they're stuck, they feel alone, like all of this stuff that like is put on them that we wouldn't expect a 14-year-old to have to deal with.
True.
With Othello, he's like definitely an adult.
Yeah.
So we have to grapple with a
longtime leader of men.
Right. We have to grapple with a lot more responsibility on his part. And what does that mean? And how does that inform our opinion of him?
Exactly. And so, and that's what I was saying when like we were talking about this before, and I was like, I don't think it's excusable, or like, or I haven't forgiven him for that. And you're like, it's not about excusing, but yet we keep talking about it in the vein of that he was manipulated. And if someone is manipulated completely, that implies an excuse of responsibility. And so that's the part that like we have to parse out and like draw a line somewhere.
I don't know. Does it though? If someone's manipulated, do we 100? Like if I say so and so is manipulated, does it excuse everything they do?
I'm saying manipulation and responsibility are mutually exclusive, and
you think? I don't think so.
Yes, I mean you can be you can be not completely manipulated. You can be like pushed in, but if I am completely manipulated, then I don't have any responsibility, and so. The question is, how manipulated was he? Like what? And what? Like how many things was he just given a choice? And how many things? Like nobody held a gun to his head. Nobody made him do those things. We keep zooming out again and like getting to the conclusion. So like let's I'm
read the list. I'm really curious about that.
Okay, so. Some of the things that I'm comparing my past experiences with Othello to this production, and this production did all these things, and I'm like, wow, I didn't get that. That wasn't clear to me in the other productions.
Right,
this
which wasn't clear to me. The actions making sense,
and it was clear to me here.
Yeah.
So, if you don't set up Iago's hate for Cassio and Othello, and Othello's love with Desdemona, why they're in love and how they're in love, and I say that specifically because a play can just say we're in love and they're happy to see each other and shit all the time, but the biggest argument and the biggest thing people will ask themselves is if he's so in love with her, why the fuck did he kill her? So like I know she cheated on him, but like a lot of people, including myself, might call into question what is love and is that love and all these different things. So like, but it's more compelling of a story if he has like a real relatable reason for loving her.
Yeah.
So I'm saying setting up Othello's love is important, and I would argue based on this production, it's there in the text.
Right.
You can do it.
Right.
Othello's state of mind, like his state, like his...
And we should be specific too. Like one of the big reasons that we are able to see the setup for him loving her is that big speech that he has in the meeting scene with the Duke and
like
everybody.
The boardroom scene.
Yeah, it's like
in this production, it's a boardroom.
Usually
and
it's like in court.
Modern military, and a lot of different times you can probably see it in the time that it was meant.
Yes.
Like in Venice, like honestly Machiavellian kind of scenario.
Right, but in this version, it's him talking about like, I was at her house, like at her dad's house, and I was telling about all the trials basically I've had to endure in my life and all the trauma and all the things I've been through.
Yeah, well, I will get into how they set it up. I'm just making the list right now.
I see.
Yeah. Okay, so Othello's love with Desdemona, what we'll get into. His state of mind, which would be like the plight of being a black person in this time, and how his level is, how his position is one of reluctant reverence from everybody else. Like everyone else seems to like him, but there's a lot of things that other characters do that make it clear that him being a black person is like a slight against him, and he has to climb out of that.
Right. They like him for his utility in the war.
Yeah. Like it's a starting out negative, and he has to be that much better just to reach the same level as everybody else.
Right.
So yeah, I put state/race. Cassio's desperate need for honor, so these things, like if we set them up right, it will inform and make reasonable the things that they choose to do, and these are the things that weren't clear to me in the other things productions that I've watched. So like it may be clear to some of the listeners, but I'm saying these are the things that have not been clear to me.
That need to be made clear in order for the play to make sense. Yeah.
So Cassio's like identity being revolving completely around honor. And then also I wrote at the very end where Amelia's head is at, because I'm mad at Amelia. And I was waiting to be shown that she had like a reasonable or logical or emotionally clear reason for doing what she did. But like, there's a couple of times where like, why didn't she just say this thing? Why didn't she just clear it up right now? Why is she holding back? And it really made me mad. And I was like mad at Amelia. So that's the list. That's the list of things that I think it's important for the play to set up. The list goes on to show like what I think is important for an audience member to know, or what I think would be helpful for an audience member to know. One of those is that, like, again, if you're going to watch this play and you've never seen it before, Amelia is Iago's wife. And I don't think that would be clear unless I knew that, because he seems to hate her.
Yeah.
He seems to just like not like her at all. And like until they had the scene where she gives him the handkerchief, I don't think it would have been clear that they're married.
Right.
Which is fucking funny. You like...
I would be curious, how like there's that, so Othello and Desdemona arrive in the port, and they're like kissing, especially in this one. They're like, "Oh, I'm so happy to see you. I missed you so much." I'd be so excited to see a production where Emilia goes up to Iago and is like trying to have the same moment with him, and he's like, "Get away!" Like, I feel like that would super clarify.
I agree. That would be funny too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
And then the fallout from that would be dope.
And the last two things I have is like just maybe like a couple things about military ranking structure, because there's a couple of things about like Iago's mad about not being promoted. So like there's that. And then like, so when they say ensign or lieutenant, like that's what that means. Maybe
so
not.
Ensign, so just for all of our, very nerdy, less military knowledgeable people out there like me, ensign is lower, and then lieutenant is above that, and then general's above that. So Othello's a general, Cassio's a lieutenant, Iago's an ensign.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't really need to know that, but like
I think you do.
It's just like a logistical aspect that is the reason that Iago points to for being mad. So
I remember like first looking at this play and being like, why is Iago so mad? He's an ensign. That sounds dope.
And the last thing I said was, I think I wrote it down again, but like I wrote, Othello was traumatized, not only from being a soldier, but like his entire life.
Yes.
And so like I think I would make the argument that Othello is somebody who is like emotionally crippled, if not, or maybe emotionally stunted, like because he built himself into the person he had to be to survive.
Yeah.
And that carried him through to a moment now where all of his emotional like hopes or baggage or just like his first attempts is like hung on Desdemona, but he has the power and the sensibilities of a war, seasoned war general. So like his actions might, you know what I mean? Like imagine the emotional state of a teen,
right?
with the power of a general.
Romeo in the Sheets, doesn't in his real life is very capable of being a leader and being an adult hero, basically. But in his personal life is just like he's experiencing his first love. And
I could make that argument, but I feel like there's something about the scene some of the scenes in the beginning that contradict that, but we'll get into that. So anyway, I think we can start the play now.
Yeah.
I think we can.
I think we've given a general idea of all the things we're grappling with.
Yeah.
And now we can get into them.
Yeah. And I think all these things will come back up as we go through it.
Yeah.
But it was, and it wasn't even like I was entertained watching this. Like I wasn't.
I'm glad.
I felt good about it. I felt.
It was a great production. It was definitely the best production I've ever seen of Othello. For sure.
From the first scene.
Yeah.
And I really loved it. And yeah, all the performances were great. And we were just, we found ourselves feeling things that like, should I feel these things from a play that I like, that I'm supposed to like? So.
Oh, that's a big question.
Anyway. And it's not just being uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable before.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we still can't quite figure it out.
I feel like that too. Could you repeat the feeling? Yeah, me too.
All right. So it starts off with Eminem walking into a rap battle, and it just goes. Bah, 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 bah.
It really
His palms
does.
are sweaty, can't breathe, arms are heavy.
Listen, it sounds exactly like the
spaghetti
intro
on
to
the
that
sweaty
song.
already.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there's a guitar part. It's like it's not the exact same thing, but if you watch this production, you'll see exactly what I mean.
Sweaty.
And it's Iago starting off, and he's with Rodrigo, which we haven't been introduced to him by name, but he's just Iago complaining to somebody. It's like he's complaining about work.
Yeah,
at the pub
and
afterwards.
Clearly, they're like at the pub just outside.
It was great. It was so smart.
You can see everybody else is just inside the pub, and they're like
Smoking
right
a
outside,
cigarette.
which also for me really sets up Iago is it's clearly him separating himself a little bit, but he feels like an outsider. He feels he's not in the crowd of people. Mm-hmm. He's just outside.
Yeah,
which arguably he's chosen to be there.
Yeah, and with Rodrigo, who's just at his coattails.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just he's like, yeah, boss, yeah, whatever you want, boss.
Oh my god,
he's
he looks like he's early 20s, and
he's just looking for someone to look up to.
What did you call him, Diet Chad?
He's running around with this collared shirt and pink pants and
his boat shoes
with no socks. And I was like, What's going on here, Chad?
He just looks like a rich
Chad
boy.
Jr.
He looks like a rich boy who does not know what he knows what he wants, but he doesn't know how to do with that.
He does not know what he wants. He does. I mean, not truly. He knows what he's feeling in the moment, but he's emotionally a child. But anyway,
that is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Should I talk about my plans for Rodrigo and my production of
you
Othello?
might as well. Like you brought it up.
So
I think it'd be actually more potent later, but you could keep pinging it. Actually, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I'll just set it up and then we'll talk about it as we talk about Rodrigo throughout this. So in my like ideal production of Othello in my mind, Rodrigo is played by like a 16-year-old boy who like, because to me it's that relationship between Iago and Rodrigo is all about like someone who is not good, who is really evil, teaching a young man about his ideas of masculinity and his, his way of going about things, and this very impressionable young man buying into it. And, not just masculinity, but like, especially sexuality and like, how to court someone and what that means and like what you can expect from someone. And especially like, him thinking, because I like Desdemona, I deserve to be with her and I should do whatever it takes to get her because that's what men do, like that kind of thing. And it just rings very immature to me, like you're saying. And I think that if he's 16, that makes us feel for him as the audience, like because he doesn't have the age and the wisdom and the not authority, the perspective to see beyond that, like essentially
to see Iago for what he is,
right?
And also the emotional like agency to like realize that this is not a good relationship for him.
Exactly. And essentially, he's a slightly darker universe version of Romeo. If instead of having Friar Lawrence to be like, hey, slow down, think about some things, realize your life is bigger than just this. If it's someone going like, fuck that, put money in your purse, follow me halfway across the world, kill that guy, and you'll get the girl you want. Like those people that do those like online video courses that are like, that's how you get the girl, and you should neg her, like all that stuff. Like he's that guy to
Rodrigo is always played as like an emotionally and probably intellectually stunted adult. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that would just fit better if it was just a normal teen.
Yes.
And like, not that teens are stupid, but they lack world experience and like
and if you're still trying to figure something out and looking for a role model, and that's your role model, you're screwed.
It's the natural place of a lot of people who are in that age group,
totally,
as opposed to an unnatural dolt that we're giving to this adult character.
Exactly.
So I agree with that.
I've seen him played by like a 45-year-old man, and I was like,
why?
I was like, I would much rather see this played by a 16-year-old boy.
It looks like. It feels more like Iago is like manipulating somebody who has like might have a disability than it does.
Right, like somebody who has no agency, or like
or like somebody who's like I'll just say who's emotionally and intellectually stunted,
right,
for some reason or another,
right, or just emotionally and intellectually young.
Yeah, whatever, same thing. Like anyway, so that's that. What was I gonna say about Iago? I can't remember. I had another point about Rodrigo. Oh, Rodrigo is an example of somebody who was completely manipulated.
Yes.
I'm saying Othello was not that.
Interesting.
And I do not hold Rodrigo irresponsible for like his attempted murder as much as I do about Othello.
Yeah.
Because Rodrigo, I do hold him responsible, but like less so because of the fact that he was still like, maybe this is just the way things work. He wasn't like sure. Like he was like, maybe this is the way things work. Maybe I need to do this. Like maybe
to get the girl.
I like, he doesn't have enough experience, and I consider that like a higher degree of manipulation. And I think again that changes how much. I think that pushes the more I more that I perceive the manipulation to go, that shrinks the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm saying they're mutually exclusive. Like more of one equals less of the other.
That's interesting. I feel like, I think I definitely agree with you that like Rodrigo feels way less culpable, but I also like Othello has a ton of experience and is very matured in his leadership capabilities, in his like, the kind of outward, less domestic areas of his life. Like, he's very mature in that respect. But like I said, like from everything the play points us to, like, this is his first relationship, or like this is his first love.
You know what I feel like?
Huh?
I feel like what you're about. Because I'm sorry, I'm going very parallel to what you're saying right now.
Sure.
But I think it's exactly the point we're getting at.
Yeah.
And you were saying, is there a perfect set of circumstances that could lead anyone, however virtuous, into this dark hole that Othello fell into? And I think if the answer is yes, then you're arguing that humans don't have free will. If there's a set of circumstances that can do that, then that eliminates choice. And I know that that's much bigger than this play. That's like a more like fundamental question about like the human nature.
I think that's part of what makes us so uncomfortable about this play.
And so like maybe the answer is yes, but I don't know. Like I'm not sure. I think that's why we're having such a trouble answering it, because nobody has been able to answer this question at the moment.
Right.
Like no, the jury is out whether humans don't have free will or not. Like, so I guess that's part of the reason why it's hard to like find evidence in like a a concrete answer to this. Anyway, did I look at your eyes are so wide looking at me right now.
So wide.
Did I do okay? Like, as far as like,
that's the perfect question to ask about this play.
But that's the point you were getting at, right? Like you were about you're about to get at like Othello's manipulation. Is what you're getting at.
Yeah, I don't quite remember what I was going to say, because now I'm just thinking about like, because I think that is what this play is about, is like, are we 100% culpable for our actions? Is manipulation something that we can just like be like, well, I was totally manipulated, that's it,
Yeah, I'm not on that train.
And I think that also speaks to what you were saying before about like Iago's, like, because what you were saying at one point today was like, Iago doesn't feel like a character that could exist. Like someone that perfectly understands everybody's motivations and can manipulate them perfectly.
Iago seemed... There are sociopaths. Iago's a sociopath. Mm-hmm. There are people who have these motivations that are completely selfish and have no remorse or regret for the damage they cause. Yes. In that sense, Iago is not necessarily unique, but he was supernaturally competent in speaking to the deepest desires of people's hearts and teasing out their most malicious possible motivations. And I called him the snake in Eden when we were talking about it. And like that sense, I feel like that was Shakespeare taking liberty with like what he could do with the pen if he had the time and the thought process to like think out the most poetic and perfect thing to say to get all these people to do all these things. Mm-hmm. And having this master plan, like so someone who's like acting passionately based on their jealousy or their rage. I just don't. It doesn't feel true to me that they could be the perfect actor and so calm and so patient and so collected to play this deep chess game and making all these people do these things at the right time. Again, sociopaths exist and they do terrible things without blinking an eye. But like, I think he was just supernaturally competent in being able to do this, and it doesn't, and that's my sense of it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to figure out like maybe what Iago like represents is like just circumstance and like the dark side of circumstance that drives us to do things. So maybe the point is we don't have free will.
I don't know. I think that's stretching it a lot. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't think the play is clearly saying that.
I also I don't know that I think that he's like supernaturally.
That's like, because I think to me,
if he's a sociopath, then he can have that clarity of thought because he's not emotionally clouded like most of us are.
Well, how do you speak to the deepest desires of Othello's heart without having the empathy to understand him? I feel like the way he teased out Othello's jealousy and insecurity about Desdemona was just so like it was artistry. Like he was like, nah, like what about this? And like, Othello, like it was a beautiful scene and a beautiful conversation, but like Iago was like, oh, well, she's, I can't say what's the truth or not, but her and Cassio have been like really good with each other. He's like, oh, but I can't. And he just played every piece so perfectly and walked the tightest of tight ropes to get through all these different things. And it is a kind of a wonder to watch somebody do that. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I like not only was he a sociopath, he was the most skilled at manipulating people that anyone's ever been at manipulating people. And so that's what I mean, supernatural. Like, he was the Michael Jordan of manipulation. Like,
right.
Like, not only did he not have a conscience, it's that too. So like, he's just the most rare bird like that there ever was. Cool. Maybe he exists. Maybe he's 1 in a million, and maybe he's in this story. Fine. I'm okay to accept that, but I have that is my sense of him and the skill level he's doing. There's not just Iago's walking around out there. I don't think that.
I think it's possible.
I mean, I don't think you're disagreeing with me then. I like I said, I think it's possible, but extremely, extremely rare.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not saying anything different. Like, okay, cool. As I'm saying, so we're saying we're a story about people, and this person happens to be like the best marksman in the fucking world. But we're like, nobody's that good a shooter. Maybe 1 in a million is. Okay, cool.
That's why the story's about them.
Exactly. So like, fine. He's in here, and it's possible. Now we keep going. We're going one level up beyond that. Like, then why tell this story when it's about?
Yeah.
Okay, because our Iago is our guide through the story, even though he's not our protagonist.
Yeah, we hate him. He sucks.
Okay, so we're still on scene 1.
I think we should just rename this podcast Scene 1.
So they set this up so perfectly because I had a problem with Iago's hate my whole experience with Othello until this play.
Same.
While it's still a little bit of a leap to get to what he was willing to do to act on it, but it still like made it so much more clear, and it was like it like the things that he was mad about was an affront to his entire identity, which is like a much more compelling reason to like have these malicious tendencies.
Yeah.
So he was mad not only that Cassio, who's younger than him, got promoted above him because he's good at math.
Right.
Is what he says.
Right. Basically, he went to West Point, and now he has like all of these qualifications, but no real world experience. And Iago has all of this real world experience.
Exactly.
He says, didn't have the benefit of like, whatever education.
He calls his his education, but not experience. He calls it all prattle without practice.
So good.
I loved it.
And he calls him an arithmetician.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. No, he says he says it sarcastically, and they promoted him the great arithmetician.
Like, that's gonna save you in battle.
And that's exactly Cassio's personality the whole time. He's just kind of bright-eyed. He's clearly way younger than Iago, and he's just like, I went to college.
Yeah, it really is like that.
It's fucking funny. So anyway, there's that, and then he also is mad that Othello is now got promoted to general and is and has done all these things, and but he's also black, and so given any other circumstance, Othello would have a lower station than him in society. And you had this moment of clarity where you're like, now I always understood this about Iago, but now I can finally explain it.
Yeah,
as to where Iago doesn't necessarily hate Othello, but Othello represents all of Iago's shortcomings and frustration in his life, and Othello is the most convenient target for Iago's frustration.
Right. Not only because he's right there and he's different, but in a way he's most vulnerable to Iago's attacks because his position is the most precarious because of his race.
Exactly. Everybody him attacking Othello, everybody already has a default position on Iago's side because they're all white.
Right. Again, it's Othello being valued for he's a really good general, at least he does that.
I said reluctant reverence.
Yes,
is what the Othello's position is.
Exactly,
which is so unfortunate and also unfortunately still relevant.
Yep.
So Iago, but to add to that, Iago's twixt my sheets, it is said abroad that he's done my office. It's been a rumor that he has slept with my wife, even though he's I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm gonna fucking act like it is true. And on its face, it's kind of a weak reason to hate Othello, but amongst the context and the position that we just described, it becomes a lot more valid.
Yeah.
Of a reason to pin his like malicious desires on Othello.
Right, exactly. And the other thing too is like, if we are to assume, which I think we are, that it's all about Iago. It's not really about Othello. It's about Iago being insecure about his marriage, about his career, about his significance in his own life, in the world, and then projecting it onto someone else. I think that that's important not only because, like, you know, it helps us clarify what his intentions are, but also, like, I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, well, why does Iago really want to fuck with Othello? Like, why does he do this? Like, why does he go to these ends? And
that's
like,
what I was thinking the entire time.
Right. Some people are like, well, you know, he didn't realize it was going to go this far. He just wanted to take Othello's job, which I don't think is really true.
No.
Like, he keeps egging it on until Desdemona's dead and his own wife is dead. And some people are like, oh, well, he's just in love with Othello based on this one line in Act 2 that I do not agree with. But, yeah, like, and, you know, you could play it that way, but I don't think it helps. Like, I think it became, like, it was always something that I'd thought and known, but it's just such a clear way of articulating it that, like, he is projecting everything that he is dissatisfied in his own life with onto the most convenient and vulnerable target.
Yeah. And his like, the way he goes about it is completely indirect and aiming to put the least amount of liability on him, which, you know, you can argue is like a Machiavellian, like, a risk assessment move, but it's also like a cowardly move,
yes.
which would reinforce his reason for choosing Othello.
Yes.
And because of the way his soliloquy goes and because of the way he thinks about this and talks about it, he doesn't understand it. He thinks he hates Othello, but I don't think he really does.
Right.
Yeah. Just like racism, like, it has no logical basis. Like,
yeah.
it's a completely emotional and like and convenient vehicle for the real motivations of the people who practice it.
Yep.
Cool. We're aligned on that.
We did it.
So Iago now immediately decides this, and we've tuned into this play as soon as the moment where his plans start to go into action, in which he knows that Othello has married Desdemona, because he meets up with Othello and he's like, and he's Othello's right hand man. So Othello's like, yo, bro, I got married. Look at the ring.
Right.
I'm fucking married. I'm happy. It's dope. Bye. And Iago's like, oh, I'm going to tell her daddy. And so
yes.
he goes,
Rodrigo, come on.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, number 2, come on. Rodrigo's like, yeah, boss, I'm coming. And so he goes to Desdemona's dad's house, and apparently he's a senator. And so, again, this is the second ping, or it helps the audience know whether Shakespeare knew this was going to stand the test of time or not. But, like, the backdrop of racism and, like, that inherent stress that it puts on that Othello is an important factor in the calculation of how we assess his actions, though it's never, like, expressly stated. We just have to, like, perceive all of, you know, like, the pressure he might be on because he's the only black person amongst a racist white people.
Yep.
And one of them is that since Iago tells her dad that she's dating a black guy, and it's expected that he will be mad at that, and he goes to tell the other senators, and it's expected that they will be mad at that. And so and then that is the, while I'm not saying anything that might be obvious, like, it might be obvious that that's the case, but in case someone's in my shoes, like, those are your clues.
Yes.
That is what's happening.
Right.
So he goes to tell him, and then the dad is like, fucking, oh shit, fuck that. Let's go call a meeting with the rest of the senators.
Yeah.
And they're already there, and you can tell that the other senators don't love Desdemona's dad, which was a nice little.
It was a nice little touch.
Thing, yeah.
Like they get there and the Duke's like, "Oh, shame you weren't able to make it to the meeting earlier. You just showed up here after they were done with the war meeting. Cool,
perfect.
Here you
Yeah,
are.
we have
you
like
come
really
with your petty personal squabbles.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thanks.
We have important state matters
War.
to attend to. And then her dad, Desdemona's dad comes in, and Othello's already there.
Yeah.
And he's like, this guy done fucking stole my daughter. And they're like, what? Othello, did you? And Othello is just the epitome of grace and calm and
centered
and just knew this was coming, like it's happened more and more times. And this, honestly, with the rest of the play, I feel like it kind of vibes with me, but it kind of doesn't. Like this is a person of decorum and restraint and maturity. So like all these things that we like say that Iago did to him, I'm like, how do we reconcile those two things? Anyway, it may be something I'm missing. I'm not saying, but I'm just like, it does stick out in my mind.
Well, we can talk about that. There's a couple of reasons that come to mind.
And so they basically the dad basically accuses Othello of like witchcraft and like trickery and like mind magic, and Othello has to like, in order to, he is now forced to defend himself against this ridiculous accusation, which would not have been valid for, I think, anybody else if they were white.
Yeah.
So, but he does. He just like, he obliges, and he sits down and calmly tells the story of how they fell in love. And it's kind of beautiful.
Yeah. And
that's something that I don't remember seeing or just remembering in the other plays that I've watched. And I don't know why. I don't know if they weren't done poorly or if maybe I just hadn't seen it enough times yet.
Actually, this is a great time to mention. I think that part of the reason is because it's a beautiful Shakespeare speech that's done a lot. And so people are like, I have to make these words sound so beautiful. And I don't think that's true all the time, but I think that sometimes people are like, oh, like it's one of the classic speeches. I have to like make it sound good. And I can't remember the name of this actor that played Othello in this production, but he just was so honest, and like you could see, and it's just as simple as you could see him seeing the images. You could see him having these memories. I think that he'd clearly like, you know, set this fire in himself about this person that he had in his mind, and it was just very honest and straightforward. And it wasn't him like, you know, yelling or like speaking like this. Like it was just him being like, you know, this is all I have, and all I have is my love for this person, and that's the only thing that's gonna save me and save us right now. Yeah, he was just. It's like he forgot they were there, and he took himself back to that place, and it was super beautiful. Like he was like, and the reasons that he describes for them falling in love, like how could you ever like, I can't hold him completely to this, because like, why do you love your wife? And like, and then suddenly psychoanalyze the reasons you say it for doing it. Yeah. It's not quite fair, but I mean, you know, this was written for somebody, so I'm gonna go ahead and do it. He's like, she listened to me, basically, is really the only thing he said. Like he says she listens to me, and she cared, and she empathized with my plight, and then she loved me for it, and so I love her. Yeah, which I thought was a little telling. Like it felt like he has lived this such horrible and strife filled life that since such a young age, that I think he has had to build himself with these stone walls around his heart, and it emotionally stunted him. And like somebody showing him some tenderness in this, you know, white world that he's trying to make it in was enough to like melt him. And then but I think it put a ton of pressure on their relationship, and it made his trust in her a little bit brittle, because everything was hinging on it. Yeah, it's like when you put somebody up on a pedestal like that, it's never going to come to good. That's me extrapolating a little bit, and I'm definitely guessing what's in his head and not really going off of textual arguments, but like that's what it feels like to me based on what happened and based on what he said. Yeah, I agree. Also to speak to that, like that thing of like, oh, this is the first love kind of feeling, like this is somewhere where he's less experienced. There's this moment that I loved, especially in the way he played it in this production, where you know, he's like talking about like, oh, she said, oh, if you had a friend who might like, you know, have a same story, I might be in love with him or whatever. And he was like kind of like laughing and blushing about that, like that that
I took that
they had this
hint,
cute,
and I went ahead and like asked her to marry me.
This cute little flirting thing, and it feels very teenager. It feels very young and like light, and especially with all the things that he's talking about in this speech that he had to deal with, like that were very traumatic. Like, I'm sure that felt like an island in the storm, and when you find something like that's an island in the storm, it feels that much more important. And so when you feel like you've lost it, it's all the more terrifying.
I was not just going to say that, but I was thinking about this exact same thing about like the framing of that, like the framing of his plight and the proposition of respite or of some sort of like escape from that, like living in pain. It's like you're in prison and you're told you're never going to get out, and then it's a different emotional state. Then you've been in prison for 10 years. You'll get out in 5 days, and those 5 days come, and then it's right as you walk out, they throw you back in. That would be way worse.
Yes.
Way worse.
Exactly.
Than if you just already accepted that you'd never get out.
Yeah, it's the risk of vulnerability.
And that's like a slightly analogous like emotional like whiplash that he'd gone through from thinking he found Desdemona a true love and then believing that
was taken away.
But the problem
and
was,
in a way, it was almost easier for him to believe that was false because he'd believed that his whole life. He'd believed that, and depending on how you play it, he'd believed that there was no hope, that it was all just like, I've got to work my way up, I've got to work, and that's it. And then finding someone like must have felt like a fluke, and then realizing, it was a fluke and that was never real, must have felt like, oh, of course this was real the whole time. But how could I have been so stupid to have believed it? Which could drive you insane.
I mean, honestly, that feels good. That feels like I feel like I can empathize with that. Mm-hmm. Still can't empathize with killing her. Mm-hmm. That's where I keep getting stopped. Like I could empathize with a lot of the plight, and I still feel for him and feel for this shitty situation he's been put in, and then the shitty things that Iago does. But like, there's a point where I can't follow. Yeah. And then it makes me wonder, like, okay, that's fine. I don't need everybody to be a protagonist, but then why?
Then why are we watching this story?
Why? Mm-hmm. And I'm not just mad because somebody innocent died, but like, why? What's the point? So we're gonna buckle up because we're gonna be saying that a lot. Scene 3. All right, so yeah, Othello's in the boardroom. He already like described the love for Desdemona. That's conducting court and pleading his case, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you're right. You're a good guy. You didn't do any magic on her.
Right?
We believe you."
Desdemona shows up. She's like, "You didn't. I love him."
Like I'm not. Yeah, exactly. Desdemona comes in and she's like, "Yeah, sorry, Dad. I love him. I love you too, but I love him." And everybody's
very nice about it.
And everybody they're like, "We're not going to apologize for making you explain yourself for just loving somebody,
just for getting married."
but we do like you. And then it was a really cool line where one of the senators leaves because the dad is like still not about it. He's like, "Fuck you, daughter, for loving him." And like, my heart is done. If I had another kid, I would fucking lock him up because I don't want him fucking marrying any black people. And then one of the senators before they leave goes your son-in-law is maybe more fair than black. And I'm like, oh, double meaning. That was a nice little bow to put on that.
I loved that.
So then Iago is with is just starts his plotting with Rodrigo too. He starts sending Rodrigo on errands to do shit, and that's really all I wrote. It didn't seem that important, but just to know that it's gonna happen again and again throughout the play. And then Iago has his first soliloquy, right?
Yeah.
And so it's it's the twixt my sheets, he's in my office. I hate the more. I can't remember if there's specific plot points he says, but he just has a really long speech, and we're supposed to know that I fucking hate this motherfucker, and I'm gonna do everything I can to undo him and Cassio.
Yeah, so basically he starts the speech by saying, I hate this guy, Also, Rodrigo's stupid, by the way. And I've been tricking everyone this whole time. And, you know, basically it's just an I hate this guy speech. But then it turns into, oh, now I have a plan to take them down. But we don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's like, it's honestly, it's like the more in Titus, who keeps talking to the camera and he's like, this is my
it's like
plan.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Totally like Aaron.
And then he like, as we go, we like follow his plan, but without the zany jazz.
God damn it.
So, another thing we know is that Desdemona, at the end of like the Senate speech, is going with Othello to the war zone that they are having the meeting about in the first place. Like when Othello was confronted by Desdemona's dad in like this like senator meeting, they're talking about the fucking war that they're fighting right now. And so at the end of that, Othello's like, all right, guys, I'm going to war. That's why you like me. And that's why you're not getting mad at me for being with Desdemona. And Desdemona's coming with me. And she's like, I want to go. And they're like, fucking fine.
Yeah, they're like, why doesn't she stay at her dad's house? And her dad, Othello, and her are all like, no, thank you. Nope.
They did do that, didn't they? Mm-hmm. That's funny.
They literally go, nor I. It's like, as you like it.
Nope. Hard pass. So they're in, and now we go to this place where like we're in a war zone. Cyprus.
Yeah.
Goats and dogs.
Goats and monkeys.
Goats and monkeys. Yeah. That's what it was. That was mean.
That's a good reference, though.
And so as soon as they got there, I was like, the bunch of dudes are like yelling, and I'm like, Chloe, I am not sure what's going on, but it looks like they won the war already. Like it's not a war. I'm like, how much time has passed? What is happening?
Yeah.
And you were like, that's basically it. Shut up and watch it.
That's exactly what happened. So like on the way there, so Othello and Desdemona are on separate ships on their way to Cyprus. On the way there, there's this huge storm, so much so that the enemy that they're fighting, who they're calling the Turks, surrender and go home. So the war is over. And then Othello and Desdemona get there separately, but there's this like kerfuffle of like, did either of their ships like go down in the storm? Is either of them dead? So they're super happy to see each other. But like basically when they get there, they've won the war. They're done.
It's so
didn't even need
funny.
to do anything really.
It's so like Shakespeare always has this like convenient plot device of like, oh, there's a storm and they got lost.
Oh, there it is.
But now they think about it, that's probably like a really, really prevalent like menace in history of like ships getting lost in storms.
Oh, yeah.
Like, didn't like an entire like Spanish fleet like totally just get fucked over in a storm?
I have no idea about that, but I totally believe it.
I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Checks out.
Not a historian.
Also, to speak to the everyone's just yelling and nothing's making sense scene, it really felt like to me they took like a bunch of like, you know, just young actors who like they gave a couple lines to because they're like, they're so spunky and upstarts and this guy's understudying Cassio, and like put them in the scene. But it felt like they didn't give them their soldier costumes till like a week before they opened, because some of them had these like big packs on and one of them had a gun, like a big gun that he was like almost gesturing with. Yeah. And I was like, no, like, because they were like running around the stage. We're like, and this is happening, and this is happening. It almost felt like anything goes. They were moving around so much, and I was like, oh, like stay, like be soldiers. But that was like honestly one of the only like thematic things that, or not thematic, like tonal things that felt off to me. That whole play, but it was so funny. I was like. You have a big backpack on, and you just like sprinted across the stage. It almost made sense for Cassio, but everybody else, I was like. Stay in one place.
We're suspending disbelief because, like, you know, it's on stage or whatever. But these are supposed to be like, they're like dressed like Marines. Like they're like in straight up Fallujah, like about to go like shoot some people up.
Yeah.
Like the tone feels like a little bit tense. Like they're happy that they just won the war, but they're all their body language is like very actory. And it's very like,
it is.
It's very as if they weren't wearing these clothes at all. And like they have people like sprinting around that where you can tell this huge 40-pound pack that Marines might wear weighs
it's
nothing.
Filled with a pillow.
Weighs zero. And then also this guy is like, so when you salute, you stand at attention and salute. And this guy is like running with this salute raised.
He like slid into the salute.
His salute is raised while he's running, and then he like when he gets to someone, then he takes it down. And it's like it's a little bit more flamboyant than I'd want it.
Like, as an actor who dearly loves actors and, like, you know, is proud of us in many levels, I was like, actors. That's what I felt. I was like, somebody tell these people how to just be soldiers.
It was very funny. Yeah, so I wrote, won the war already?
Yes.
And then
and I was like, yes.
And I also wrote, because I've seen Othello so many times, yes. I wrote, Iago seems to hate Amelia.
Yeah.
He like really doesn't like her, which is funny for like a married couple that like, again, I don't think the audience would know that they're married.
No, I still want that moment that's like, you know, Amelia tries to parallel the Desdemona Othello thing, and Iago's like, get your face away from
me. Like, literally,
know?
Act 2 is when we find out they're married, and they've interacted like 4 times.
Yeah.
And then they also made the choice to make Amelia a soldier in this one.
I liked that.
Which is interesting, and I also liked it because, like, I also find it really weird and implausible that it being a rumor that Othello bedded Amelia. Like, when would he have the opportunity?
Right.
How would that work? When would Othello and Amelia be unaccounted for? And Iago is like, oh, I'm gonna just go watch a baseball game. Like
right.
What? Like, it felt really weird for that to be like a rumor,
even a theory that Iago has. Yeah.
A rumor abroad. Like, who the fuck cares who Iago is? Like, what is happening? But then for her to be like part of his battalion or whatever would be a much stronger reason to where like they might be somewhere where Iago isn't.
Right.
You know, and they're like the intimate relationships between like, you know, being brothers or sisters in arms.
Yeah.
That felt better. And also for her function in the play, it doesn't really change much. It's nice. That was
it's
good.
Great. It's almost like, you know, she's a soldier who's assigned to protect the general's wife or whatever.
Pretty much, yeah. It worked.
Love it.
And I also wrote, Cassio's a puppy.
He's such a puppy.
He's so like optimistic, and he's just like, I went to college, and
he
like
really is.
I can do math real good, and we gonna win this war. And Othello's great, and
Iago's great.
He had this really. It felt weird, but I guess it felt like true to his character that like he was like he felt like a religious zealot, and Othello was his god. Like
it was great.
He was like. And everybody's doing such a great job. We're gonna win this war. Like he was on cocaine or something. And he's like, oh, Desdemona's so wonderful and lovely, and Othello's great, and his dick is so big, and Iago's dick is like slightly less big but still girthy, and they're just the best ever, and we are great. We're gonna win this war.
I can't.
And that was
too good.
That's
pretty accurate.
That was like the emotional state of like our introduction to Cassio. He's just like, everything is honor and great, and like the world makes sense to Cassio because it is in these very narrow terms, and he drank the Kool-Aid of like what society and like, you know, military culture like is like.
He wants to be a good officer. He wants to be a good leader of his
All
men.
the rules are right.
Yes.
And everybody should follow him, and we're gonna do great. And we're gonna be like, he's just oozing optimism
and positivity and naivete.
And that just like pisses cynical Iago off to like no end. And it's great. I honestly that
it works.
Every Cassio I've seen is like that, and I see why. Like if like given all these circumstances, it's great. It works.
Connor, our friend Connor played Cassio, and he was great.
Great, yeah.
So positive.
That was just him. That was
it was just
casting.
straight up him. Yeah. Yes, good Cassioing.
Connor, you're not naive. You're a wonderful human being.
Yeah, you're just positive. You just got the positivity down pat.
Yeah, your smile. Your default is a big, wonderful smile, and we love it.
Beautiful puppy.
So then I wrote like. I every time Iago goes back to Rodrigo and just like go do this and like further this plot, like every time Rodrigo is just trying to get with Desdemona and he has no hope of it, but Iago keeps convincing him that like if you just keep doing the things I tell you to do and doing my missions, then eventually it'll end up with you getting Desdemona, and Rodrigo's just dumb enough to believe it. So it's like kind of like a blank slate plot wise for Rodrigo to do the thing that he needs to do to move Iago's plans along. So it's a little bit like a gimme for Shakespeare writing this, but also like I didn't even bother to write down what he does next because it's just like, okay, they plot again and then
probably put money in thy purse. I don't know. He like really goes to get Iago more money.
And then Iago has like another soliloquy and he just like talks to the audience again. He's like, I hate these motherfuckers. My plan's going good. This is the next step. Here we go. Like, We just checking in again
Yeah.
with our fucking awful, loathsome guide.
Narrator, right?
Yeah, guide through this story.
I was saying too, like we keep laughing about all the lines that are like honest Iago. Like, isn't it amazing how honest Iago is? Iago is the honestest of all. Like, there are all these lines in this play about this, and Paul's like, I want to laugh every time that happens, and I'm like, I think it's supposed to be a laugh line practically, because like, you know, we know the groundlings at this point. Like, they would have been like, no, stop, don't listen to him, he's a fucking liar,
don't go in there.
Right, exactly. And like, and I feel like with Iago, if somebody goes like, oh, you know, and I feel like Iago, we should listen to him, I can imagine the groundlings going, no, you shouldn't, he's a liar, he's going behind your back. And then Othello has to turn to the audience literally and go, Iago is an honest man. Like, you know, which is hilarious. Or even if he doesn't do that, it's still like, I still feel like it should almost be played for a laugh.
Yeah, the irony is so rich that it's like campy almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like a bit. It's like a running bit throughout the show.
I'm inclined to believe that. And also, I was making the point that, like, nobody, like, honesty is like a passive character trait. Like, you
said that. That was funny.
You are generally, if you're generally honest, it's kind of invisible. Maybe you are noted for it for having integrity because you had a conflict of interest to be dishonest, but you still chose honesty. Mm-hmm. Cool. People respect you for it. But, like, who goes around, like, it's not like outwardly being happy, like happy Iago, that motherfucker's smiling all the time and he's always like super bubbly,
right?
But like nobody goes around just like, man, that guy's honest every day. Like, what? That's nope, nobody says that.
You're so honest every day. Like, that would be so weird. Like, I feel like people only note it if it's like, don't trust that guy.
Yeah, honestly, if people are honest every day, they're probably called an asshole. Right. So
then
honest Iago.
They're just Jaques from As You Like It.
So honest Iago is plotting again, soliloquying away, and then I wrote Iago plants the seeds to Cassio for the first time. And this is, Cassio is like, again, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, on watch, like trying to do his duty. And then Iago's like, I'll fucking do it real quick. Just like go have a drink real quick. And he's like, I'm kind of an alcoholic because when I start drinking, I get crazy. And he's like, it's fine, just go do one. And then he just kind of like pushes him into doing like one drink, and then he just keeps doing more.
Puts him into a shot contest with someone.
And the way he has Rodrigo come and like fuck it up is that he has Rodrigo come and like do something off stage, but I guess like, like pinch his ass or something, or do something. Probably he does something.
I hope it was pinch his ass.
It probably was. He does something so egregious and inflammatory that in one gesture caused fucking Cassio to have bloodlust and see red and try to kill Rodrigo. So I don't know if he just
kill him, but just fight him.
Yeah, but like, like enraged, like not like I want satisfaction, like no, we're past that. I'm gonna fuck you up. Like he like smacked his dick or something. I don't know what he did, but he did something like so egregious, and it only took a couple seconds, and then he ran away. And then so that causes like a big ass brawl. Yeah. But because Iago has the proxy of Rodrigo, who's now gone.
Right.
Then
it's not on him.
Nothing can ever be traced back to him. So it's like he's supposed to have like this mastermind kind of style, which is kind of true because of some of the speeches he gives to people, but he's also kind of a one-trick pony in the sense that he just sends Rodrigo in to do something and nobody knows that he knows Rodrigo, so he's always safe. And Rodrigo apparently always gets away. So
right.
It's like that's just kind of like how this always plays out.
Yeah, he's a coward. He really is a coward. I think that's something that's not emphasized enough when we talk about Iago. Like, I think that people talk a lot about, like, oh, he's so brilliant and he's so terrifying and he's so evil, but nobody ever talks about, like, he is a coward. Like, he takes no action himself.
Yeah. Well, he eventually...
I guess he eventually does.
That's what we were talking about. Like, I wish that would have stayed consistent throughout the end, because I know I would have, like, had at least one consistent, like, method that I could point to, but things still change. We'll get there.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then that is all to Iago's plan, which is to have Cassio lose favor in the eyes of Othello, because Cassio is desperate for honor and reputation and like all these things. And Othello comes in, and then Iago's like, I don't want to fucking tell the story what happened, but they're like, honest, Iago, fucking tell me who did this shit. And Iago's like, I guess so. I guess I have to. I don't want to though.
He doesn't even do that though. He's so much of a like. That he goes, I would never say anything against Michael Cassio.
It's so, yeah, it's like,
and then he goes, oops.
He like hams it up. Yeah, it's so bad.
But he plays it really well. But like, it's even script wise, he totally hams it up.
Yeah,
he's like,
it feels.
I would never say a word against my comrade Cassio.
It's almost, it's almost like we have to suspend the disbelief that the people in the play wouldn't hear that and be like, shut the fuck up. Like who would say that and believe that Iago is pure of heart?
Yes.
Yeah, they'd be like, what are you playing at? So anyway, he does that and everybody believes it. And so therefore he not only absolves himself of any possible scrutiny for like causing this, he is now revered even more for his honesty because he didn't want to give up Cassio. Mm-hmm. He's not a snitch. He would have protected Cassio, but he has to tell on Cassio. And then Othello's like, Iago's trying to protect you, and he's amazing for that. But I gotta be hard on you. You're fucking fired, or you're demoted.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like,
you're not my lieutenant anymore.
Yeah, and so
lieutenant anymore. There we go.
While that's a fair enough punishment for that. Cassio is now distraught, and according to him, emotionally, he feels like his life is over. Like, like I have ruined my opportunity to do the only thing worth doing in life.
Yeah, he has this speech about reputation, and it starts with him being like, just crying out in pain, and Iago's like, "What is wrong? Like, are you okay?" And he's like, "Are you hurt?" And he goes like, reputation, I've lost my reputation, that kind of classic Shakespeare line. And in this production, it was one of my favorite ways I've seen that speech done, where it's like, he's just like doubled over and like clutching his chest. Mm-hmm. And it genuinely looks like he's hurt.
Yeah.
And he played it really well without me feeling like, oh, reputation, I've lost, and I've seen it played pretty well before, but this was definitely the best in terms of like, as the audience member, I was like, are you okay? Like, is he hurt?
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah. Like when emotional pain is so bad that it's physical.
Yes.
Like for sure. Mm-hmm. I felt that way too, and it felt real. So, but anyway, I do want to ping this. So like, this is one of the moments where like, in some ways, Iago is brilliant. Like that's what I'm saying. That's why I feel like he's supernaturally competent at this, because he understands Cassio. Like I feel like, again, in this play, nobody sees anybody. Like they just like fucking Othello looks past Desdemona, and like the people who are they're supposed to be loved by other people, I feel like they just get looked past. Like even Bianco has this tiny part, like loves Cassio, and Cassio just fucking looks right past her. He just sees vagina, and Othello just sees whatever,
safe place
like
to land.
A safe place to land. Maybe and Iago sees he just doesn't fucking like Amelia at all. But Iago is the only person who like speaks to the true desires of these people. Like he does see them, but he just has the most opposite and malicious intention.
Yeah.
Because he has to see Cassio to understand that the way to hurt him most is to have him lose favor in the eyes of Othello.
Right.
And so he concocts this plan to hurt Cassio the way he will most be hurt. And you can't do that without empathy and without understanding someone at least as on a certain level of the way they understand themselves.
Yeah.
So like, in that sense, I'm like, that was a kind of a genius move.
Yeah.
And so he also and he plays everybody else like a fiddle in these ways too. Like, and it all fucks up at the end, and we'll get there. But like, that's what I'm saying. For like, it's like, and exactly. Cassio has this speech about reputation, but like, Iago like plays the part to a T as if he was a friend, as if and like, so it's like, who's that good? So people can be sociopathic enough to like, do this awful thing and do it to the sense and do it like commit a murder or to like commit a heist or a robbery and a lot of times the only thing that's keeping somebody from doing this is like the boldness to do it, because anybody else would be nervous enough and probably fuck up and like not think about all these things, and he's just calm and collected enough to do it. But he also can like play the character of like the most empathetic and like wonderful friend. Like, who can shift back and forth like that? Like, it just felt so supernatural to me that he could do that on a switch whenever he needed to.
Yeah.
And that part didn't feel real, but I actually liked it. Like, I can go into this play and like it if I just turn the key in my head to saying Iago is a fucking devil from hell, and just with these special powers. And even if it's just symbolic and it's like it's not real that he's that, but like that's his function in this play, that would be cool. But it doesn't feel like it completely cleanly finishes that way. So I go back to being stuck. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
We keep saying that, but I've never felt like that with this play. I've never felt like there's no way that an Iago exists in the world. Like, I don't feel like I have to make that switch in my brain.
Really?
Yeah, maybe that's pessimistic of me. I'm not sure. That's very unlike me to have a very pessimistic view of something. But I do feel like, I don't know, I do feel like that is possible for a human being. In the worst possible way. It scares me. It scares me that I think that's possible.
Yeah, I guess I'm not saying anything. I guess neither of us are saying anything too far from what we said in the beginning, which is it's possible, but extremely, extremely rare, because the skill with which he did it is like.
I agree. I mean,
not impossible, but like the LeBron James of manipulation.
Right.
Like,
and I feel like that's why we watch Silence of the Lambs, and why we find Hannibal Lecter so intriguing and evil and terrible, is because of a similar kind of like level of manipulation. Like, we're like, this person is so profoundly evil and two steps ahead of us that like we're fucked.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's a huge part of what happens in Othello, which, yeah. All
right. So that scene's over. We've reaffirmed that Iago is like
a dick.
And
an uncommon
but plausible character.
Right.
Then we have the scene with Iago and Othello.
Yes.
And this is where Iago plants the seeds for Othello not liking
his
Desdemona.
Jealousy.
And this is this is the crystallized moment of where I thought he was like supernatural, because like the way he teases out Othello's insecurity for Desdemona and her and Cassio, and like it's just so perfect. It's not like, yo, I heard your girl's cheating on you with Cassio. It's like, oh, you know, like I think Desdemona's great, and I think Cassio's great. Isn't it interesting that they're always hanging out with each other? Oh, I mean, like wouldn't think anything about that. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Except they just ran away really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just
Did you see that?
It's so subtle, and it is so perfect, and he's playing it. It's like you have to have a certain level of empathy to like understand what that would do to someone and how. So, and he's just like, he's playing them like a fiddle, and like, and I really like that scene, and like, and it's so calm, it's so soft,
yes,
it's so patient, it's such a silent scene, no one's screaming, and Othello is just like, you know, just his armor's getting chinked away, and you barely see it. It's super subtle. It's a genius way to play it. I fucking loved it.
Yeah, and I think one thing you're saying, like they're not screaming, is compared to other productions, you know, we've talked about in the past. And it was just so nice to see one where it really felt like, it felt real. Like it felt way more honest than other versions of it that I've seen, which is great. Yeah.
And like, what I'm saying, like, we have to believe that Iago convinces Othello that this crazy shit is happening, that it's not happening. And we have like a couple of like circumstantial hearsay kind of evidence pieces, but that's the reason why I didn't like this play in the past, because I don't think they're very compelling. But Iago's speech and the way Iago interacts with Othello is a lot more compelling than those things.
Yeah.
So he creates that as like a rickety kind of like scaffolding of evidence, but then he imbues it with so much like doubt and like he paints these possible pictures for Othello that Othello can latch on to these like very flimsy pieces of evidence.
Yeah.
But we'll get to what that implies, but like I find Iago's manipulation much more compelling than I did before.
I agree.
With this way.
Like that it makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so that seems fucking great. Like, I could talk about that forever, but I mean, like, I don't think I need to say much more.
But it's almost like because it was so great, we're like, yeah, we can move on.
Yeah, because me trying to describe it, I feel like would just not do it justice and just kind of fall short. But, like, that's the conceit of what happens.
It's so good. It's just, two people playing at what they want and what they're scared of, and, somebody kind of playing into somebody else's fears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, we get a soliloquy from Othello. He was basically talking about Desdemona, like in like how, I don't remember exactly what it says.
I don't remember that one.
Really?
No.
I thought I was really hoping. I was like, oh, Chloe will fill this in.
So is it right after Iago leaves?
Yeah, right after that, Iago leaves.
Oh, I think it's him convincing himself everything's fine.
Yes, he's like, oh yeah, I won't believe it. No.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's like buying into what Iago says, and then he's like, oh, but Desdemona is so great. That's stupid.
He's just letting it simmer.
I'm not gonna like let that put a chink in my armor. Like, why would I believe that? It's bullshit. I mean, even and this was great too, because I've never seen it played like this before, and we'll get here, but in that bathroom scene where like he's still falling back into, like, he loves her, and he's just like buying into these, or not buying into, but like falling back into these images of like, she's so beautiful, like it's so sad because she's so beautiful and kind and good, and I love her. And Iago's like, but remember how much worse that is because she cheated on you. And he's like, oh yeah, that sucks. And it sucks how much she's so cute, and like she does all this great stuff for me. And it's just this version especially reminded me of how much Othello tries to resist, like how much he like tries to be like, but wait, no, what am I doing? But wait, what is this?
I don't know.
I mean, not enough.
I was gonna say,
you know
like,
what I mean.
That it all falls to the way. Part of this is the way we see the world.
Yeah.
And like the things that we value. But yeah, like to me, no matter how much he tries to resist, it's all for nothing because he doesn't.
Yeah, I know. Like in a court of law, and like when we're making final judgment on him as a person, like. Yeah, he did not do the right thing or make the right decision. Duh, that was a bad plan.
I'm not talking about a court of law. I'm talking about what the things that I value and how I would categorize how I feel about it. And so, yeah, I definitely I they're the same thing. So but
like, there's no world in which you'll catch me being like, he killed Desdemona, but I get it. Like it's not about that. It's about like, I can see how this path was set up. I can see how he got led down this path. It makes human sense to me. Does that mean it was okay? Does that mean I'm behind it? Does that mean I'm willing to dismiss it even slightly? No.
I'm not sure if we're gonna be. I'm not willing to necessarily.
It just
do that.
to me, it's like it shows me how humans are able to be led to do something. Like I believe that a play could play out this way, but that doesn't mean that I think it's good. Like it's the difference between like, I understand a character's motivation in a scene. Does that mean that I would do that? No.
I feel like there's a few like words that we need to find, because I feel like we've been talking about this play specifically and these actions for like 2 years, but also just like today. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we're almost just talking past each other just a little bit.
I think so too.
And I'm trying to figure out what the exact words are, where it's just really difficult to separate.
Like, it's even like, like there are times when I'm playing a character in a play or in a film or whatever, and you get a script and you're like, I think this script needs to be revised because this person wants something up until halfway through the play, and then they totally switch for this one thing. It goes against everything they've wanted before this in the play. Mm-hmm. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And that's one thing. And then there's another thing of like, oh, like this character, like I'm playing Macbeth, and like, all these things piled up that then made him want to kill the king. And I get how those things piled up and made him want to kill the king. If I'm Chloe, even if I'm living in Macbeth's world, that doesn't mean that I would actually do those things. But it means that under those circumstances, with those pressures on someone, I can understand how someone would.
Yeah. I can't. I don't know. There's something blocking me, and it may be my failure to find the right words too. But I can only understand. I mean, I could like say sure and get it,
but you don't have to. I'm not saying you.
Sure, and like, but
And I might be not describing it fully either. I think I'm not.
Also,
this isn't feeling satisfying.
We spent time working through this, and like maybe I'm still like, still processing how I feel about it. Because Othello is not the first character in a fictional story to murder somebody. Like, maybe I'm trying to think if I can like. Yeah, I can't. I still can't quite empathize. Like, I can get behind how somebody would want to kill the king, but I'm not sure if I can empathize with somebody choosing to kill the king. You know what I mean? Like choosing to go through with it, and I can't. And so this is a very good distinction I was talking about too, like because the concept of like justification for what an action is different from like okay, I don't know exactly how to articulate this, but I'll just go ahead and go to the example. But like if Iago had said, Othello, Desdemona is the one that killed your mother, and your mother was because his mother was murdered or some shit. And then he goes, oh shit, I'm gonna kill Desdemona now, and he kills her. But then it turns out it was a lie. Like that is tragic and terrible. But I could almost like the justification for those things is like one way. Like I can't understand why Othello would want to kill Desdemona for cheating on her, because I don't think that's that offense justifies those actions, no matter what, no matter how. So I can't get. It's not. I don't. I know you're not asking me to sign off on it like it's justified, or asking me to do that.
I'm not signing off on it.
Yeah.
At all.
As I'm saying. I know you're not asking me to do that, and I know you're not doing that, but I can't get in the headspace because no matter how heinous of the circumstances of cheating, like you could have cheated in like with my best friend and like in the bed we share, and I'd be like, and like somebody would be super sad, but I can't follow someone into the headspace that says you're gonna die now and I'm gonna choke you out, fucking like in a terrible way. You know what I mean? Like I don't get it. I can't. So like. And not to say that nobody can. Probably a lot of people probably could. Probably a lot of people might kill their spouses if they found them cheating in a fucking heinous way. But like, I just can't. And it's also like, it muddies the waters of like, what the fuck are we talking about with this play? I feel like we're getting so stuck in the mud.
No, but I think it's the question of this play too. Yeah. It's like the thing to get stuck in the mud about. I mean, I'm thinking about like, Game of Thrones and like, people killing each other in that for like way less reasons. Like
but those aren't there's much more to unpack. So another part of the conversation we were having earlier was that like there are uncomfortable and like messy and like complicated and unresolved and weird things in a lot of the other Shakespeare plays, but there's still like moments or aspects of it that are consistent and they do crystallize certain points, or like the whole, maybe nobody in the play is like great, or like, a lot of the heroes die and like the villains win, but like there are themes that are clear enough and like permeate the entire play. And I know I'm just being super vague here, not giving a lot of examples, but like I feel like if you listen to the other podcasts we do, it'll be clear enough that is the case for a lot of the other plays. I don't see that in this play. Like, it's not clear to me that it's
like
about one
theme.
It's not clear to me. Like, I'm trying to like just derive some like wisdom or like truth about human nature, or maybe like some similarity in like things that I perceive about life today, or something I understand about history or like myself. And I keep looking for it in many angles as I can, but I really can't find one. Like I'd have to force myself to tell myself there's one. Not that it's not there, or like I'm open to being convinced, but I can't find it. And I thought it was because of my lack of understanding of it. But as many times as I've seen it, and as much as we talked about it, I have to start understanding the possibility that it might not be there.
Maybe.
Open to being convinced.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as of now, and I'm really trying to.
Yeah, I believe you.
So that's where I'm at the moment. But like we can still dig through a few more of this. But I mean, fuck, and it's like frustrating me because I'm like, it's like something. It's like something completed with like a super high skill level, but I'm like, I don't want this. Like somebody built like an entire beautiful sculpture with impeccable detail, but it's all made out of shit. I'm like,
oh my God.
why are you doing this? Good job, but like I'm sure it's a fucking like morbid example, but you know what I mean. This is a stinky example.
My God, you're turning into me. That was such a me joke.
You deserve it.
I liked it at some weird level. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at a similar place I was at the beginning of like. So part of me right now is like feeling some things that I'm like I want to convince you of, but I feel like maybe it's just a taste difference. Maybe that's part of it. And then
I mean, I'm open.
Part of me is also like feeling like there's stuff that we could rehash, but I feel like we've already talked about it. And then part of me is just not on it, like truly, honestly, just not feeling very confident right now about what I think this play is about, what I think this play should say, who I think should direct this play, and what direction they should go in with it. Like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the answer is. Like, I kind of wish that someone could make a Titus version of this play, like the Titus 1999 that we watched, so that I could be like that, like
Julie!
that. Julie, I don't know, maybe she should do Othello. But I do feel like there's I don't know, I can't tell if I'm like being optimistic because I like Shakespeare so much, or if there's something that I feel like is eluding me that maybe even we've touched on in discussions we've had before. It's eluding me of what to reference, even to myself, even to like be like, this is what's valuable about it to me. I'm thinking about that conversation we had with Angela, who was in that one production of Othello that we did that summer, and she had this idea of an Othello where like at the end all of the women come out and they have to clean up all the blood and everything off the stage, which to me that version of that play would feel like, oh, you know, there's all these terrible things happening between the men in this militaristic world, and eventually everything kind of falls to the women. Like the brunt of the pain or the results, the bad results, fall to the women, and it's left to them to kind of clean it up as much as they can. Yeah. And that feels like something to me.
Yeah.
Like that feels interesting.
But
that almost feels like it overlooks the race aspect of it with what Othello's dealing with, and it's just like, well, he's just another asshole man in the military world, and I don't think we can overlook that either. You know, so
exactly, we're left with trying to ascertain the point that Shakespeare was trying to make, but because we can only ever guess at that, we won't ever know. I think, and we've said this many times before, is that like I think it's up to us to like make a choice. Like these things are close, like have like this grid snap function to like snap it to the thing that you can create a vision for and drive that home, even if you have to add things, even if you have to cut things, to like, I think give it, otherwise we are just left using the same ingredients, even though like may not be relevant anymore. Like I feel like I don't see a lot of value in putting on the exact same play without understanding ourselves what we're trying to say or what we're trying to do with it.
But I'm also, part of me is feeling a little bit of like even the thing you said about like grid snap function right now is like, part of me feels like I'm trying to, and this is the nature of the podcast too, like cater it to your sensibilities of like wanting things to be a little bit more like in line.
Make it simple for me.
Right. And I do like, I know that's you also joking around, but I'm also like, maybe it doesn't quite live in that place, and maybe that's part of this play too. So maybe I need to sit with this for a while and be like, is there more of a gray area place in this play that it lives that, you know, maybe is just not quite resonating with you as much? Or
no,
and then there's another aspect of it too, where, so I'm thinking about this production specifically where, you know, at the end we have Iago, and he's the last person in the room because he kind of pulls himself away when he's in handcuffs to look at the bed that's filled with his wife, Emilia, who he killed directly, Desdemona, who he set Othello on to kill, basically, and Othello, who killed himself because he realized what Iago kind of manipulated him into and what he had done. And so basically all these people on the bed are dead because of him. And it's like, in the image, if we didn't know anything about what's happening right now, it's like a white dude standing over a bed with like two women and a black dude on it and we know that they are basically dead because of him in a lot of ways. And so that's like an image. So it's like, is this play about like, you know, sexism and racism causing all these terrible circumstances for people? I don't know. Like I honestly, it's a lot. It's a lot to grapple with, and I don't know what any of the answers are right now.
Yeah.
Like, is it about that? Maybe. And if it is, like, what does that say? Because they were able to get tricked into them, does that mean they're stupid? Is Amelia stupid? Is Amelia complicit? Like, how complicit is Amelia? That's a whole other thing we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I find myself being definitely, if at least, annoyed with Amelia.
Oh yeah,
because they hang a lot of that plot point up on that fucking handkerchief line, and she just is sitting there alone with Desdemona, knowing that she's looking for it and not telling her that she took it, and I just like really fucking pisses me off. And then at the end, I'm glad at the end at least she says like, I'm mad at myself for not telling him. Like, yeah, you fucking should be.
Yeah, she definitely should be. The one thing that she says that made that make more sense to me of like why she didn't tell Desdemona was that line that we talked about, the like men are not jealous for the cause but jealous for their jealous. Like they're not jealous because he's not jealous because you lost the handkerchief. He's just jealous, which I'm sure was her experience with Iago, and that's why she's saying it to Desdemona.
Yes, she does.
So what she's saying is like the handkerchief is irrelevant. So if the handkerchief's irrelevant, why would she tell her about it? She's just like, well, he's going to be jealous no matter what.
I mean,
why would I get myself?
I think I have enough evidence for like emotional reasoning, but I still think I'm still
annoyed.
I'm still mad at her.
Me too. I'm just trying to get it to make sense. We don't need to be on her side. I feel like that with everybody, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that's square one. Square one is just like understanding why everybody does what they do, and as long as there's logical reasons for them to do it, and it's strong reasons that we from which we derive their character, then we have a play that lives in reality. From there, themes I think will organically emerge. I don't think it's
or
like
not.
Or not, yeah. I think like that's, you know,
which I feel like is the place.
Talk to any writer who's written like a seminal piece or a book series. Like none of them like, oh, I'm trying to go for these themes. Like they're all saying, you know, like, oh, I just write for true characters, and I'll have a few plot points I want to get to, and
right. So I feel like the question that I want to ask you is like, and also that I'm asking myself is, if that's the bottom line, if all we want is true characters, then do the characters feel true? I feel like we've talked about it, and yes, they do. And then it's just the question of like, well, if Shakespeare was just writing and not thinking about themes, then why are we mad at this play? You know?
No, I mean, I was like kind of in the middle of that, but there's also like, you know, there's things, there's other tools at, I think, that a writer has access to that like editorially that could shift circumstances and like shift different things that you know that before the play is in its like finished state. I don't think, like, I feel like what you just described makes like Shakespeare say that I have these circumstances and this is just what happened and I have no power to change it because this is what it is and here you go, this is a good play. Like that, not necessarily.
You just said most good writers just try to write true characters and then it grows from there.
Yeah, but the circumstances can change. I mean,
so you're saying
it's not like I've written novels and shit and I'm like the authority on this, but I mean like I'm not trying to say that there's no editorial authority. I'm trying to say like writers don't write with a lot of based on the, let me try to qualify my statement.
Yeah.
Based on the commentary from writers talking about their own work that I've happen to listen to, not a lot of them don't write from like a top-down perspective about I want to make a story about this. Sometimes they do generally, but most of it is a very granular process of working through the logical thought processes of a lot of different characters given a certain level of circumstances, and sometimes they don't even know where it's going to end. And so they can change certain things to get things to a certain place, but they don't think about like theme. They think about, you know, logic and processes, but they have like editorial authority and they have like, they are the hand of God that can shift things around.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like it's considered bad writing if you just like give a character a 180.
Yeah.
But you can you have other choices that can change the flow of the plot or like the
question I'm asking you is, what are you saying this play is lacking? Are we saying that it's lacking true characters, or are we saying it's lacking something beyond that? Because
I'm not saying it's lacking true characters, but that's not the only ingredient that needs to be good in order for a play to be good.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm saying, well, yeah, you can have true characters about a bunch of shitty people or about a situation that I don't care about, or that a situation that doesn't say anything.
Right. So I'm just checking in about that, because the first times we had these conversations, the question was, do these characters make sense?
Yes.
Are they true characters? I'm
right,
kind of trying to just get a temperature gauge of like, where are we at with this play now? Like, what do we...
I think these are extremely unlikely characters, and no, I think Iago's the only one who's extremely unlikely. But like I think they're I sign off on like everyone like having at least a reason for themselves why they did what they did.
Yeah. So I think what we're saying is kind of what we said at the beginning, which is just the place we're at with it now is like, why tell this story? Why this story?
Yeah.
So, and I think I don't know what the answer is right now.
So, this is like a heavy fucking episode. Like,
it is. I'm trying
to be funny, and I'm trying to like, not like be funny, but like I have fun talking about this. Like, this is fun, like digging through stuff. But at times, it does feel like I'm fucking trudging through the fucking mud, dude. I'm like,
same. Wait, Paul, say something funny.
Something funny? Let's see. Okay, yeah. So they're in this like fucking like office room, and this is when Iago, like, he's done doing the snake in the Eden bit, and he's like, oh, Othello, like, you know, fucking Desdemona's like maybe cheating, I don't know, whatever. And Othello's like, my resolve is cracking, and and Othello is, you know, like left to contemplate. And I think like a lot of people like come in and leave like throughout this like multiple scene kind of situation, and Desdemona comes in and she has the handkerchief, and then she's like, hey, you know, what's up? And he's like having doubts about her, and he's mad at her, but she doesn't know why. And he's like knocks his handkerchief out of her hand, and she falls, and then the handkerchief falls, and she's like, well, fine, dick, I'll fucking leave. And she leaves, and the handkerchief's on the floor now. And then Othello leaves, and then like fucking Amelia comes in and picks up. It's all this just like little bit of
swinging doors,
really quickly, just to like set up these next couple things. Amelia comes in, oh, I found this handkerchief, perfect. And then Iago comes in, and she's like,
and
here's the handkerchief.
And he's
like,
wait, the thing Amelia says now is important for us not hating Amelia as much. We still don't like her. She goes, oh, this is cool. Iago keeps asking about this handkerchief. What I'm going to do is take this handkerchief and have the work copied and give that copy to Iago so that I can give this back to Desdemona. Like, she's not intending to steal the handkerchief,
I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You said it helped a little earlier.
It did. It helped a little bit.
Doesn't help a lot.
Apparently, she was going to, get it copied and give it back. So and then she's like teasing Iago with it. He's like, you know, the handkerchief that you all have been asking me to steal forever, apparently. Here it is. And he's like, what? And he fucking takes it, and she's like, what are you doing? I gotta give it back to her. And he's like, no, get out of here. And she's like, all right, I'll leave, and I won't mention this to her either, for some reason. and that's, I gotta roll my eyes at that. And then Othello comes back in.
Also, for buying into like the fact that women have no power in this world, like, what would she do? You know? Besides
tell Desdemona where the handkerchief is?
What would that do?
Well, it would let Desdemona know that, like when Othello asks about it, she'd be like, "Fucking Amelia took it, and Iago has it," because it would give him a lead to understand what happened instead of her saying, "I don't know where it is," which is a lame excuse.
I mean, I agree, but it's also like I can see why Amelia would feel like I'm gonna get in trouble if I tell her that I took it and now Iago has it.
Yeah, and now I'm mad at her.
I mean, I'm mad at her too. I'm just letting you know.
I didn't think that she's necessarily crazy for not saying anything, but I mean...
But she's kind of a dick for not saying anything.
I'm treating her like she should be treated, like she's not stupid. Yeah. So like I'm like, then why the fuck didn't you say anything? So I'm mad at you.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm holding her to a high standard.
I'm not saying... I'm just going back to the are the characters truthful thing. I'm not going to like moral judgments.
Yeah, I mean, it was small enough. I'm sure. Me neither. I'm at moral judgment.
Okay. I guess we've already established. Yeah, sure. Their intentions are true enough.
Yeah. So Iago. Now I circled it every time we. So yeah, it's up until this point. Iago has been like, basically just kind of like indirectly manipulating everybody. He's been like suggesting. He's been like asking questions. He's been showing people what's true. And letting, or like, maybe changing the framing of that, how to look at that so they can interpret it how they want.
Yeah.
And so that is where, the quote unquote genius, or like the slipperiness of Iago, I think, is very maybe skillful, for lack of a better word.
Ew.
Right? It is ill, but I mean, like, it takes some sort of intellect and some sort of like nuance or finesse to do that.
Yeah, I hate it.
And then we get to if that continued until the end of the play, that would be, I think, kind of interesting, because then it would be like a weird, like, it might be like a Black Mirror episode, like fucking, he's just like, everybody did the thing, all you guys did all this terrible shit, but all I did was tell you the truth, and like, that might be like an interesting framing to look at this play. But that all falls apart right now, because Iago tells the first of 3 big ass lies that create all the fallout that comes of this.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier in terms of like what does happen if Iago is that person, but because I think it makes it really clear that Iago is not just a mirror in this play, he is an acting agent, and I think that's an important distinguishment.
I'm not saying he was a mirror. I'm just saying, like, that we've reached a fork, and now we're going. We could have went down an interesting path where at least when something was consistent, and now we've messied it up.
Exactly, and I think that I don't know. I wouldn't say we've messed it up. I think it
not messed it up. I said, like, made it messy.
I think it's a clear fork. I think that, like, I think that by making that distinction, we realize that Iago is not a mirror, and that he does change the course of these people's lives.
Are you, like, I feel like I'm saying that. Who are you arguing with?
I'm just making the distinction for our audience, because I think that it would be possible to just, float away and think,
Iago's a mirror.
Yeah, or like the events of this play would have happened without him, or whatever. Like, Othello was already jealous, and Desdemona was already whatever, and so I think that.
Do you think a lot of people think that?
Maybe not a lot, but I think it could be an interesting trap to fall into.
Oh, yeah, definitely don't think that. I think it's painfully obvious that, just for the record, Iago is the mover of this play. These things would not happen if Iago didn't do this.
Yeah.
So, and in this first lie is he tells Othello that he heard Cassio sleep talking, that he was messing with Desdemona, and they played it with this comedic moment where he's like, yeah, he was like sleeping, and he said, he's like, Desdemona, like, he wanted to be with her, and then he like put his leg on my leg, and then he like cuddled me, and it was like real nice.
And they kissed too.
And
he kissed him.
So
also, like, were they in the same bed?
That's what he was saying. Maybe he was lying in a trench with him. That's a thing.
That's pretty hot.
I don't know.
Just kidding.
Ew.
That might be. Yeah, that could totally be.
Like, yeah, whatever. Maybe, like, battle and, what's the word I'm looking for? Practicality does require, like, close quarters a lot when it comes to military practices.
Makes sense.
So that's the first lie. And then the second lie is that he says Cassio I saw him with her handkerchief, and he hasn't given it to Cassio yet. He still has it on him. Mm-hmm. So those are 2 lies that are the circumstantial evidence and very flimsy evidence that Desdemona is having an affair.
Yeah. And
Othello, who has now had time to stew with Iago's initial suggestions, is now being reinforced with these quote unquote facts.
Right.
So, and then at the end of this speech, Othello is 100% convinced, without ever talking to Desdemona, within a 1 hour period, he is 100% convinced that she's guilty.
Yeah.
And so that is another reason why, like, the love thing is, like, why I have a hard time believing, or like, I wouldn't describe Othello's relationship to Desdemona as love. I don't believe. I think they're, like, love is such a huge word, and it means something to me. It might mean something different to everybody else. But I think trust and respect is very much encompassed within love, within, like, true romantic love or a deep romantic love. That I don't think it would be possible for him to have determined her guilt, and at the same time have this deep romantic love that I would describe as that, with that includes respect and trust. So that's a big caveats I'm making. So just don't come for me.
Yeah, I think the lack of trust is a huge component in this, and I think that, in line with the true character thing, it makes sense to me that he doesn't have as much trust in people, like that his trust is more fragile. Because it seems like at an intimate level, Desdemona's the only person he trusts, and that he's ever let in.
I mean, honestly, given his actions, I would argue that Iago is the only person he trusts.
Well, I mean, he loses Desdemona and then he has to latch onto someone else.
No, but Iago's the only person he ever takes his word for it. He takes nobody else's word for granted. Just Iago. I mean, you could say like emotionally feel safe with, but the only person he takes their word for granted is Iago.
I mean, there's just a lot to unpack about what you just said, and I don't think I want to get into all of it.
That's fair. I had a problem with that Desdemona is the only person he trusts. Trust with what? I guess that's the question.
Exactly.
Trust with what?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm glad we figured that out before we needed to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I don't want to go down this rabbit trail. I really didn't.
Okay. So,
man, I'm feeling the heaviness right now. It's weighing on me. I'm like, I can like literally. It's just like my shoulders. Oh man.
It's there, man. So. And the reason why I say this, why I say like he didn't in love because he's not in love and because of all this shit because he believes Iago at the end of this conversation is because at the end of the conversation the conceit is we will kill Cassio within 3 days, and he's like, what about Desdemona? Let her live. He's like, damn her, and then the conversation's over. So like it's unequivocal that that's the conceit, that they're like, fuck, we'll kill both of them. They're guilty.
Yeah.
Based on very little circumstantial evidence.
I feel like a part of me still feels like you're being pretty logical about it, and I think that there's a level of it that's not logical at all. That's very gut and very like, that's not like. Of course they shouldn't do that. Like, of course this is a terrible idea, but like. I'm also not condoning it. Again, I want to say that again. Because I feel like when I say that, you think I'm condoning it or something.
I mean, honestly, like I get it. Like like, you know me, like I'm a robot, but like you say, like I'm being logical about it. I mean, like how else? Like if I was, I am putting myself in his shoes, and if somebody told me that my lover was cheating on me, but only had. Oh, I saw them there, and like if I've only had the hearsay of one person, like it would the logical response isn't they're guilty, let's act on that conclusion. It's not that. It's I have now cause to investigate further.
Well, I feel like that's what they do, or at least that's what Iago says. Like they have multiple conversations.
They do.
And then he's bringing him more and more. And even at the beginning, like he's like, I would have ocular proof. Like I want to see this happening or I'm not going to believe it. And Iago's like, what? Like how would we like you really want to see them having sex? And also how would I be able to help you see them having sex? And also they're going to be sneaky about it. Like we're not going to be able to catch them literally having sex, especially if we start investigating. They're not gonna be doing it as much because they're gonna like be hiding from that. And so Othello goes, okay, I don't need to see it literally, but I do need to like see some proof that's like more concrete, which is when the handkerchief comes into play.
Yeah, I guess you're right. He does recant on that. He does like backtrack that a little bit. Not backtrack it, but they just don't acknowledge it again. And he does say, he gets mad at Iago because he's like, are you trying to fuck with me now? I want proof. Even though, yeah, but like at the end of that other conversation, he did say, kill Iago, kill Cassio in 3 days and damn her. But then he's like, yeah, he's going back and forth. He's like on an emotional roller coaster at the moment. Mm-hmm. You're right.
And I think the other thing to bring into bear with this aspect of the conversation too is like just the trauma that he has likely experienced from being at war. And also there's a slight trauma, and this is weird too, but like a concern for him of the war being over. Like now that the war's over, like his usefulness to the state is gone. At least for now, at least for the foreseeable future. So like that's emotionally wrought.
I believe that.
Which could mean the end of his relationship with Desdemona.
I believe that, and I feel that. And I'm not saying that you're arguing for the play for this, but I consider that I would consider that a shortcoming of the play. If that's what he's feeling, we have soliloquies and we have them put all of their internal dialogue into them to show what they're feeling and what they're worried about. If that's one of the things that they're worried about, I think that's a little, I don't know, maybe it's a time period thing. Maybe it's obvious to everybody in the crowd during Shakespeare's time. So maybe that's like some sort of adjustment that we could like ask, that we could like somehow bridge that gap. But if I need to consider that in order to understand his mental state, like it's a little too nuanced and deep, I feel like, for me to be expected to understand it. Though I will grant that, like, sure, if that's the case and that's just something that we talk about now, so people who do see it do understand that and then they're thus enjoy the play more, cool. But like,
or if it's something that like a choice is made in the play that makes that clear, like, you know, he has his uniform on the whole play, and then once the war is over, then like he takes it off and is like putting it on a hanger.
Oh, that would
and like
be
looking at it and being like, "Fuck."
You're right. Just, that would be fantastic.
Something like that.
And also, yeah, that might, yeah, like his whole like viability to exist in this higher society in which normal circumstances he would be exiled from is tied to war. Mm-hmm. And if they're not in war, his currency has run out.
Yeah.
So fucking, that's a great point. I totally get that. I don't know. It's almost like I'm falling in a trap that we've fallen to before, where I'm like, no, Chloe, like fuck that. Like, I'm not, the play didn't tell me that, so it's not fair. It shouldn't be on the test.
Right. It shouldn't be on the test. That's so funny.
And so I'm not quite saying that, but like
I'm not arguing for this production, but I'm saying that for my money, that is a given circumstance of the text of this play. And if we want to bring it into bear, we should. Mm-hmm. And I think we should. I think something should tell us that that's affecting him.
I agree. I think that would help. Anyway, okay, so we have like another scene that comes in. There's a lot of shit that happens right now because we like Iago concocts this like little scenario in which everybody is seeing the same thing, but everybody has different angles on what they think it means. Right. And so
it's like a Rorschach test.
Yeah. Like fucking Amelia has like a small conversation with Desdemona and doesn't admit that she has a handkerchief, even though Amona,
like an asshole.
Even though Desdemona's like, I'm looking for this handkerchief, and he's like pissed that it's gone, and Amelia is like,
suck.
Yeah, basically. And then very quickly that you know, changes scenes. And
I did have this one moment. I'm so sorry. I know you're trying to move on, but I did have this one moment in this production where I was like, what if Amelia is in love with Desdemona and is trying to turn her against Othello? And then I was like, that's dumb and overcomplicating things, but I had a moment.
You love that storyline.
It's so fun.
Like, what if, fuck the boys, this girl's in love with the other girl. Not everything is two noble kinsmen, all right?
No, two noble kinsmen. We'll talk about that. It's 100% that.
Yeah, I was saying not everything is that.
No, it's not. And I recant what I had thought, but I thought it was a fun theory to share.
It was fun.
Somebody write an essay.
So that happens, and then Cassio, you know, has this handkerchief that he found in his bedroom, and he gives it to Bianca, and Bianca's like, this is from some other wench. And Othello is witnessing this, and he's in it, but the whole point of him witnessing it is just to witness that at some point Cassio had possession of his mother's handkerchief that he had gotten from his mother and given to Desdemona. All right, weird. We're about to get into weird fucking
handkerchief territory.
No, I was gonna say fucking soap opera territory. We're like, he said shit and he said this and they said that.
It totally is, yeah.
And then so Iago has, and then they both leave, and now we're in the bathroom again with the bathroom that Cassio and Bianca just left. Fuck, it's so complicated. And Othello and Iago are talking now. They're like, what's going on? And he's like, it's kind of complicated. It's kind of confusing. I wasn't quite sure what Othello was supposed to be thinking. But anyway, Othello is like, I still need more proof. And Iago is like, he tells lie number 3 now. He says, Cassio confessed it to me. Cassio told me that he fucking did it. And so, because like, it sounds like Iago's getting desperate now because Othello was not going to like, so he just had to like lie again. And then Cassio comes back in the bathroom and Othello goes back into the stall to hide. And he's talking to Iago. And then he has Cassio boast about Bianca and how Bianca loves him and follows him around. And she just wants my dick so hard and she's thirsty. But then Othello is meant to believe that Cassio's talking about Desdemona. And so like that is when it's supposed to be enough proof for Othello that, oh, I have Iago's word, I have Cassio's quote unquote confession, and yeah, and so that's enough. And so like, you know, he Cassio leaves, and now Othello has the same like emotional reactions that's so strong that it becomes physical. Like he has like a fucking seizure.
Yeah.
He's like it's like that bad. Oh, I cannot I can't imagine what it's like to be in like that much emotional stress. I like the most emotional stress I've been in my life did affect me physically. But not to that extent. I didn't like break down and have a fucking seizure. Like I've been cheated on and it was like fucking life changing. Yeah. But like not like that. So like I'm taking it as his word. I
was gonna say it also might point to his previous trauma too.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's supposed to help us realize there's more going on here than just I'm jealous or I think she cheated on me. It's like he has a lot wrapped up in this relationship with Desdemona in a kind of codependent way.
For sure. So yeah, after that happens, Othello and Iago have another like, you know, resolving into the conversation. They're like, all right, I'll kill her. And Iago's
kill
like,
the beast.
Iago's like, no, strangler. That's good. Do it in that bed. And Othello's like, yeah, I like that. That's a poetic justice for that bitch. And then he's like, and Iago's like, even though he's still like playing it like I guess I'll help you too. He's like, even though Cassio's my friend, I'll kill him. And Othello's like, man, you're so good. You kill your friend for me. You're
the best.
You're the best guy. You're the best friend a man could have. Yeah, I goes like, I know. Wink, wink. One thing I really don't like about that Othello does is that like he does this like whole coy game, and it's so bitchy. And
it was especially coy in this production.
Oh man, I mean, all the productions I've seen, it's like that. It's like, you know, Desdemona. Once he's decided,
it's definitely textual too. Yeah.
Once he's decided her guilt, she's like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, what is up? You would say
it
that.
It is like that. It's totally like that.
She's like, nothing. I'm just like, you know, going to the movies. Like, a movie? Oh, really? Oh, a movie?
Who are you gonna watch it with?
Who? It's like just some friends. Oh, I bet they're good friends. Like,
yeah,
like, it's so bitchy. I'm just like, just fucking say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god. And there's like 2 full scenes worth of this, and on this one, once because of this, like, there's another like subplot where like Othello is being sent home, and Cassio is gonna, you know, quote unquote rule in, where are we at? Like Cyprus in his stead. And so that's already been decided, and Othello's got a letter of it, so he thinks like, oh, but Cassio gets to fuck my wife and he gets promoted. Like, fuck this motherfucker.
Yeah.
But he only
which
takes
also
it.
Speaks to the we don't need you anymore kind of shit.
Yeah, and also
they're pulling.
If we're talking about like Angela's like domestic abuse through line, he takes that anger and takes it out on Desdemona.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess he knows that Iago's gonna kill Cassio, so I guess it's like even spread. Whatever. He does the whole coy thing again with Desdemona. He's like, she can turn and she can turn again, because all the senators come to like, you know, come and see Cyprus, the place we conquered, and they talk to Othello, and they don't really know him very much. They've heard about him, and so
they were in that little conference room meeting.
Yeah,
I don't think they knew him much before that.
It seemed like it must be, you know, because like every time Othello does something, I'm like, is this the kind, just, valiant Moor we've heard of? So like clearly they don't fucking know him.
I like their voices.
Yeah, they're like the old Muppet dudes in the balcony.
Yes. Seems kind of pretty dumb.
That was good.
Thanks.
So Othello is like, she could turn and turn again, like she's a fucking wench and I don't like her. They're like, that's your wife, dude. He's like, whatever. Pop! Slaps her. And she's like so confused, which she should be because she's done nothing wrong and only tried to be nice and put up with a lot of his shit, honestly. So, I mean, like, I don't know what else she could have done besides like ran, maybe. Like, there's nothing else she could have done to convince him. Every time that something happens, she doesn't like let it lie. She tries to be like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, she tries to talk it out.
She really does. She asks him point blank, what's wrong, a lot. And he's like, oh, what is wrong? And like, he just keeps playing coy. And I'm like, fuck off. Like, say what you want. I hate lack of confrontation. It really, like be bold enough to do it and then also do it, I don't know, maturely, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that. I don't feel like is emotionally driven. It feels like immaturity. Like it doesn't feel. I don't know. Anyway, it rubs me the wrong way, and I don't like.
Yeah,
it.
I don't know, but we keep referencing back to so many of these things he's doing and being like, oh, that's so high school. It's so bitchy, and like it is.
I guess
I feel like he is kind of stunted in that way. Like
he doesn't know how to deal with that.
He has had so much less experience. Yeah. He's like, well, what have you been up to? Yeah.
What is up?
Well, I really like, what's up? What is up, Desdemona? What is up?
He's so bitchy, and it really doesn't. Like when I think of like mature, valiant, brave general, I think someone who is very comfortable with confrontation and is probably like excels at confrontation in the most positive and effective way. And so to see someone just like be such at a square one with this different flavor of confrontation is so jarring and like just annoying to me.
That's so funny. I think that the difference is the different flavor.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same
but
thing.
It is still frustrating. I hear you.
And I do recognize that it's not the same thing. I wasn't expecting it to be, but like but I just I react to it naturally as like, shut the fuck up.
I agree. And honestly, the thing you were saying before about like when they're like, when Iago suggests, well, why don't you strangle her in the bed? And he's like, that's poetic justice. That to me is not the first moment, but it's the biggest early moment for me going like, I'm done with this guy. I can't anymore. He's a villain.
Yeah.
Because he has the opportunity to even be like, Iago, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like that could be the moment that he snaps out of it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Yeah.
He just goes all in.
Yeah.
He's all in.
I found Othello to be very villainous, and I think that's part of my. I think this happens to you sometimes too, but it's happening to me right now, where we group in what we fear other people may think of the play as like the play's fault. Like I think part of what scares you and what worries you and what makes you comfortable about 12th Night is what the political implications that we talked about. And like when we say Othello is like manipulated by Iago to do this, that that is so disgusting to me that I am worried about it. I'm like no, Othello is a villain. Like he's not completely a terrible person. He expresses remorse. He's not the Joker or anything like that. But I mean, like he's not divorced of this choice he made that was completely his own.
Right.
So for us to I feel like I may be emotionally grouping in my analysis and judgment of the play with my fear of people saying it's about Iago manipulating Othello. And I'm like, no, you cannot say that without the caveat of the choices Othello made. And that like, I can't let it go, and it bothers me that may be a common or even like a large group of people who think of it that way. It really it's like I think it's bothering me. I think that's what's happening when I'm balking so much at that prospect.
That makes so much sense, and I feel like that was really well put too. Like I don't know. I feel like that boils down a lot of what we've been talking about in a really good way.
Yeah. I hope so.
I also think, what was I going to say? I don't know. I can't even remember what I was going to say. I'm just kind of sitting with that. That's really, I was going to ask, like, do you feel like part of that is almost kind of the in a way, do you feel like that like limits what people, like limits Othello's agency, like limits his own, like, even though it's him doing something terrible, like that if we like just write it off as like, well, it's Iago's fault, then it like makes Othello somehow like more two-dimensional or like,
Well, or like less responsible.
Right.
And that's a terrible maxim or like value or like to take away from this.
Yeah.
That I can be manipulated into murdering somebody like that. No,
Right.
You pulled the trigger. You are responsible. And it's just it's not just uncomfortable to me for like the prospect as if it feels icky. Like it is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. And it's a dangerous way to think about your responsibility in the way that you interact with others. People like that's why we try to teach people how to think. We have freedom of speech. We try to. It's the way our justice system is supposed to work in theory. So that's a good thing. But I mean, yeah, I think it's also just an important way for society to work. Like, how would that work if I could be excused of these terrible deeds because I was quote unquote manipulated? Mm-hmm. Like I said, we feel a little bit less harsh on someone like Rodrigo because he seems so stunted and less capable. But like especially on someone Othello, who is not young, who is not naive, who is a leader of men in a position of absolute authority to us to excuse something because he was manipulated. And it's so like, and I know saying that he was manipulated doesn't say excuse, and you can be like, I didn't say that. But like, if that's the what thing you're focusing on, that is the implication. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why I made the very specific choice to say they're mutually exclusive. One of one means less of the other. More, yes. So I'm waiting to be convinced otherwise, but like, I think that's pretty clear.
I think that I hear what you're saying about more of one means less of the other between manipulation and agency, and I almost think they're separate. I think that, but this is just, for my money and the way that I look at humanity. Like, I think that, like, the idea you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink or whatever is you can manipulate me all you want into a corner, but at the end of the day, I still have a choice no matter what.
Then in that case, then they're not it's a very semantic argument, but that's what makes it, I think, pretty clear. Like, if you could make it drink, then it would be manipulated, or if you could make me do something, and if you can't make me do something, then if you can...
Then you're not manipulated, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. If you can't make me do something, then I'm 100% responsible if I do it.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, you can put pressure on people in there that like adds like context to the situation in which Iago and Othello are culpable for this situation, but Othello does not escape, I don't think, like the judgment of what we're judging this fictional character of doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, Othello is in. Then Othello like goes. I think we find him in the bedroom again. Yeah, he goes to Desdemona's bedroom and he's like emptying out all her shit.
Yeah,
he's like looking.
And Emilia's there.
He's looking for something. Yeah, Emilia comes in and I wrote down like last chance. It wasn't his last chance.
No, honestly, it was though.
Like, it was in some senses it was, because Emilia was like, "Yo, what's wrong?" He's like, "Desdemona cheated on me." She's like, "That did not happen. That's never happened. None of this shit happened. Listen to me. Don't listen to Iago. I'm fucking telling you it didn't happen."
But to be clear, she doesn't know that Iago's the one putting this in his head.
She doesn't. You're correct.
She's like, don't listen to whoever's talking to you about this.
Like he's like, she never sent you away. She never did anything with Iago. She's like, never.
Nope,
She's the truest person ever.
Yeah.
And he's not hearing it.
Were they ever alone together? Nope. Did they ever whisper? Nope. Like all of it.
He's not even seeing her. He's just looking straight past her.
Yeah. He's just still like throwing open her suitcase and throwing all the stuff on the floor.
And then I wrote after that, like, he finally confronts Desdemona after all of this shit goes down. Fucking finally. And I'm like, I'm still mad at him at this point, because I'm like, should have fucking said something.
Yeah.
She denies it, and he's not having it. And like, at which point we can't even have this conversation. This conversation is pointless if you can't take me for my word about what I'm saying.
Right.
Then I think Othello leaves, and then Emilia comforts Desdemona. Emilia and Iago come in after that.
Yes.
And they both
comfort Desdemona.
Comfort Desdemona, and Desdemona, I'm just gonna call it Double D. Double D is like, he's fucking being an asshole. I don't know why he's saying this shit. I never did it. And then Iago's like, really? I didn't know he could be an asshole. What do you mean?
Him?
Why? Oh, that's terrible. Why? And I guess like when I like go through it all like chronologically, he has never like he's somehow been in the right place at the right time to never be seen saying the wrong thing around the wrong person. So like he's played it pretty good. It just happens that he swings for the fences and it just blows up in his face at the end. But like Iago tells Rodrigo at this point. So like now Rodrigo has been
oh my God.
sent on so many errands to do things that have not gotten him any closer to his goal.
In this war zone that Iago invited him to on the prospect of getting with Desdemona, who is married.
I really like the costume choice too, because like his like Diet Chad like outfit is kind of almost looks like reporter. And so like they kind of almost
blends in.
Like he has like these like business casual clothes on him with a flak jacket on and like a press badge, it looks like.
Yeah.
So like, which is a really good like seamless like little thing of like why he's in the war zone.
Yeah.
And so he just apparently like comes from money and has some money anyway, and he's like trying to like get with Desdemona. But anyway, so he's been like sent on so many errands that don't help him at all, but seem to only serve Iago. And finally he gets up the nerve and he's like, Iago, you're being an asshole to me. I don't think you're playing fair, and I think you're just trying to like manipulate me, and I'm not having it. And then Iago's like, that's some backbone. I really like that. And he's like, really?
What?
He's just like,
me?
he's just shooting fish in a barrel. He's just easy pickings for Iago. And Iago's like, all right, but all you gotta do is now you gotta kill Cassio. And Rodrigo's like, what? He's like, I don't know about that. He's like, no, you definitely got to do it. And then fucking Desdemona is yours. And it's the most lazy manipulation.
It's such a Hail Mary too, because it's like, so Desdemona is actually in love with Cassio, so you should kill him, and then you're set.
It's like it just clues into how naive. I mean, like I was gonna say stupid, but like sure, I'll go with naive and like ununderstanding of anybody else that Rodrigo is, as if it's like love works that way and you're just next in line.
Oh God, yeah. Oh.
A very bright-eyed 16-year-old boy would be, honestly, even like 15-year-old boy.
I know.
Would be like a perfect Iago casting. That's a great choice. I want to see that, honestly.
Thank you.
And it also makes us like, it would make Iago that much more evil and us feel a lot more, because honestly, like, Rodrigo functions as like just like kind of like a Joker card that can do anything.
Yeah.
Just because he's
like a wild card.
He's an extension of Iago's will.
Yeah.
And kind of like a blank slate. I don't really see him as anything, but I would if it was
were
a young
kid,
boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
so
Iago leaves. And to go do that plot with Rodrigo, and then Amelia and Desdemona have like this conversation. Oh, they have their little song and they're having their beer outside.
Yeah.
And Amelia and Desdemona. And then Amelia has her speech about men.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really, really good speech. I can see why people point to that and say that Amelia loves Desdemona.
But no, that's just me making that up.
It's not enough.
No,
and it wouldn't work. But I can see what you mean. Because like Amelia almost is very cynical about men. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that she's married to Iago, who's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And what she does say about all men could easily be just replaced with Iago's name.
Yeah.
And it would work. So I don't know. I have no doubt that, women's suffrage is a thing. So it's not that she's like wrong or anything, but she is,
she has a skewed experience for sure.
Yes. And she
has a very specific experience. She's also in the military, which I really like as a choice for her, because she's probably seen a lot of kind of toxic masculinity situations. And I think that I really liked the way she played it in this one. I really liked this Amelia. I felt like I've seen a lot where, she's just, the main objective is like, she's comforting Desdemona, and she's like, men are assholes sometimes, and it really sucks.
I think
she's don't like it.
She's like projecting too.
Oh yeah, for sure. But in this one, she was like, look, men will get what they want, and so you've got to get what you want, and you should get revenge because he fucked with you, and it's like you need to activate yourself. You need to militarize yourself in some ways. Like, you can't let him fucking walk all over you because you're gonna get fucked over.
She's talking to herself.
her past self. I'm sure it was exactly her when she first married Iago.
That's how they played it, honestly, and it worked really well.
Great.
And they had their little song together, and she gave her a beer, and they were like, "It's gonna be okay." But Desdemona like didn't quite buy into it at the end because like Amelia like went over very far and was just like they use us and they do all these things, and she like basically said like fuck men, and Desdemona wasn't quite about it.
No, she wasn't. She was like, even though this has happened, I still love him.
Yeah.
Which also sucks, but also like makes sense.
Desdemona was like the most virtuous and like most patient and like understanding and like willing to risk everything for like somebody else. She was the most selfless character.
Yeah.
Which is a device for writing this story because it makes everybody else that much more evil for fucking killing her.
So true.
But it's also just like sad. It's very sad. It makes me when you're done with this play, you're gonna feel sad and mad.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah.
So I remember the scene where Othello kills her, and I've seen it in multiple productions, a handful of productions. But like somehow I still forgot the logistics of how it happened, and because it's scarred me for life, and you're trying to block it out. I should have known it because I've seen it before, and like I forgot. Oh yeah, she needs to have that line, so she can't be dead yet. But I forgot, and it was awful. It was awful. So like he
bad. Starts to kill her, and then she's.
I'm fucking.
Oh, you're gonna go through it. He's gonna go through it.
So
here we go.
He confronts her. And he finally is like asking her like, what's up? What's going on? She's like, no, I didn't do it. But he's so past this point now. It's like the murder's been premeditated. Mm-hmm. He's spent all his time psyching himself up to this and finding every other evidence about her doings, none of which can be actual evidence because they live in the time they live in, and you can't get evidence unless you see it happening. And the last person he asks is her when it's far too late. And he finally asks her about the handkerchief now. Now he
after
asks
Cassio
her,
is literally dead, right? In his mind, at least.
He thought Iago was gone through with killing Cassio already. So he's like, all the chips are falling. This is the last domino, and then all will be right with the world, and I'll be right in my assumption that there is no love and there's no happiness for me.
Yay!
Right now is when he asks about the handkerchief, and I'm like, you son of a bitch. And so like on its face, if you were watching a production of this that, didn't set up all of these very difficult nuances to set up and didn't knock down all these dominoes, you might be asking yourself, why is this play even a thing? Right. Because all he had to do was ask her about the handkerchief from the beginning, and we would have solved all these problems. And that is kind of true, but it makes a lot more sense with this really well thought out production.
Yeah.
That, like Iago had a more intricate web than I previously might have thought. Mm-hmm. But I'm still fucking mad at him because he was like, now you fucking mentioned the handkerchief? And she's like, no, I don't fucking know. And he's like, doesn't matter, you're still guilty. I shouldn't even ask because I wasn't going to listen to anything you said. And he's like, that's it, you're dead. And the way the productions I've seen, they play it this way too, but it's just awful because she's like, she doesn't like go quietly into that good night. She doesn't say like, I don't like this. This is bullshit. Go ahead and kill me, you son of a bitch. And just take it. She screams bloody murder the whole fucking time. And it's like your skin crawls, and it's probably fucking supposed to because it's fucking terrible. Mm-hmm. And he smothers her with the pillow. She's fighting. She's screaming bloody murder. It's fucking. I'm sure everybody in the audience is in a cold sweat, and she's fighting him. And then finally, her body starts to go limp. And then who knocks on the door? But Amelia is like, "Hey, y'all, want to talk to my mistress? Hey, yo, motherfucker. I don't know what time it is, but I'm talking to my mistress." Mm-hmm. Also, because Cassio got hurt. Because shit's going down. General, we need you.
Right.
And he's like, do I answer? Do I keep choking her? Do I answer? Do I keep choking her? She seems dead. I'll let the pillow off. And she's not dead. She's still alive. Uh-huh. And she probably is thinking, I might get through this. I'm not dead. And he lifts the pillow off. He might have changed his mind. Mm-hmm. I'm going through the most awful death possible. Ever. And then he's like, nah, I'm gonna kill you. He fucking starts choking her out. He chokes her out, and she's like it's even worse now because she's probably looking her in the eyes, and he's like doing it, and then like Amelia's still knocking on the door, and he's like looking at the door, and he's like, she ain't dead yet. I'm just keep choking her more.
Dude, he like didn't look at her though while he was choking her.
Yeah, but I'm saying
which was like so heartbreaking.
I'm
like,
saying
oh my
she was
God.
looking at him.
Right.
And he's fucking choking her, and then like Amelia's still knocking on the door, and I wrote down like still not dead. Like I was so mad. I forgot that was the thing. Mm-hmm. And
but it's worse than that.
And then he stops, and then finally she's dead, and then Amelia opens the door, and he tries to like position her body like she's sleeping, and then and Amelia opens the door, and she's like, oh, Othello, like shit's happening, what's going on, what's up, my mistress, and then she's like, she starts moving again, and I'm like, oh, why is she moving? She's dead. Oh, she's not dead, and she's still alive. It kills me. Like I can't believe I've seen this play so many times, and I forgot that. I forgot she talks to Amelia right before she dies.
So bad.
And she talks to Amelia, and she's just like, Amelia's like, what happened? She's like, nothing. I did this to myself. And then she dies. And I'm like, she's the most virtuous flower. She's fucking killed.
No, it's so sad.
Of course they did that just to tug on your heartstrings a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Just like, she could do no wrong, and you motherfuckers killed her. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Stannis' daughter when he burned her alive.
God, yeah.
Just like complete innocence. And
yes.
And like Davos is like, she was good and you killed her.
Yeah,
that's what
the
I feel
whole
like.
audience.
That's what I feel like.
She was good and you killed her.
Yeah, in Othello is Melisandre.
And then that's what Amelia does.
No. Iago's Melisandre. Othello is Stannis.
Oh my God, that's it. Oh my God.
He is the prince that was promised.
No, he's not. God.
Iago is a redheaded temptress with real old saggy boobs. That
does not surprise me at all. Color me not surprised.
So...
He totally is. You're right.
Let's dig ourselves out of this little hole. And so now the play like comes to its like final conclusion. And now it all concludes. Well, wait. Do we see a Iago? Yeah, we do. They do show Cassio, trying to get killed by Rodrigo, but like not working.
He is not yet dead. He is not yet dead.
So. Yeah, they like Cassio. Rodrigo just like is incompetent and fails at killing Cassio and shoots him in the leg. And Cassio shoots Rodrigo in the leg, and they're both like in the dark, and they're like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And in the confusion, Iago goes ahead and betrays Rodrigo, fucking murders him. Again, that'd be so much more tragic and terrible for a 16-year-old boy. And
telling you.
And then like Iago like paints himself as like coming to Cassio's rescue. He's like, this is all working out for me. I always come out on top. I'm looking so dope right now. I'm gonna go check in on the other side of the plan. Oh shit, is blown up in my face. So they're all in the murder scene, which should have like police tape around it right now.
Yeah.
Because fucking Desdemona is straight up dead. She got murked. And now because Amelia's in the same room with Iago, like that's like was just like the chink in the armor of the plan. Like if Amelia was ever in the same room as Iago with this going on, like you would not see the same thing because Amelia was not a co-conspirator. She was actively like she like despises and resents Iago. And she also loves Desdemona, or like recognizes her as at least like some innocent person who does not deserve to be mixed up in this fucked up world.
Right.
And she will give her life for the honor of her mistress.
Yeah.
Which she does. So she like the story, like Iago's story completely falls apart because like Amelia now realizes the significance of the fucking handkerchief, and she like it all falls apart. Like I could say who says what, but I think the only important thing is that it all falls apart. And then Iago's outed and his plan is outed, and Othello now is like experiencing the remorse of his action. Like he had the world, and now he has to grapple with the fact that he threw it away. Mm-hmm. Even he himself holds himself responsible because he should.
Yep.
And that is pretty awful to watch, and they linger on this scene for a long time. It's not quick. And
I feel like in a certain way that is another even deeper level to the tragedy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is the rock bottom of the tragedy, is him finding out and him having that remorse for what he did.
Yeah, we called this tragedy like an ugly tragedy.
Yeah.
Because again, like comparing it to Romeo and Juliet, we feel like there's like a certain like tidal force of nature that is pushing these young 13 and 15-year-old teens with their heightened emotions and their warped and like probably simplistic and volatile view of what love is, into thinking that this is the most important thing that will ever happen. If I don't get it, I'll never recover. And we do infantilize them a little bit. Like at least I do. Like I see it as if I'm like, oh, there's things that they don't understand. Like I'm giving them it's weird because I'm excusing some of what they do, but that has the added implication of saying they're not developed enough to get it yet. So like you both, if one is true, the other's true.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. I don't know if that's what everybody does with Romeo and Juliet, but I'm doing that. And that is part of the tragedy of what, like the tidal force of nature that I'm describing is consistent. It is one thing pushing in one direction,
right?
Which helps the tragedy be a lot more clearer. Like you feel like and everybody tried to convince them otherwise. Everybody tried to speak reason to them, and they were utterly convinced that I will have this or I will have death, and that is what's tragic, because I feel like it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was nothing anyone could have done something about it.
Them.
And that is like the sweet kind of beautiful, bitter irony, tragedy of that.
Yeah.
But Othello is not quite that. It is so much messier and weirder and like who's responsible and what all these things, like it's ugly.
Yeah.
But I guess tragic fits. But I feel like now the word feels bigger, and the word feels like it's tugging at itself.
Yeah.
It feels, I don't know what to call it. And that's part of like the pain we're experiencing and trying to categorize what the fuck is happening.
I think so too. I'm thinking about it as well, and in a weird way. And this is also like boiling it down too much, because what we're feeling is that it's the opposite of boiled down. So this is definitely an oversimplification, but in a certain way, with these two lovers that are that are being pushed apart by a circumstance and it ending in tragedy, it almost feels like a grown-up version of Romeo and Juliet, where it's like all of these problems have been just amplified and made more complicated and disgusting, and how much responsibility do we have, and how much are our circumstances pushing on us, and etc.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. That is boiling it down a lot.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Like, I will not hang my hat on that for a second, but just to draw maybe like a little dotted line between the two of them, and not to say that they're the same at all.
Yeah.
But just it's an interesting comparison to make in my mind, and like
exactly.
How are they similar?
There are some things like somebody like this might in a weird way be like a response to someone saying Romeo and Juliet's like way too simplistic and it's too young. It's like, all right, well look at this one. and
we'll go watch Othello.
And you did look it up, and Othello was definitely written after Romeo and Juliet,
right? Which we looked up because it feels like Rodrigo
is Bizarro like, Romeo.
Yes, he is. He's like dark and twisty universe. It's to reference Community. It's the darkest timeline version of Romeo, basically. Because it's like Romeo if he had a terrible fucking influence as opposed to Friar Lawrence.
Romeo was. I was like, you horny bitch. Like you're not in love.
And I'm sure that's the feedback Shakespeare is getting from people too. They're
Maybe.
Like, you just get it. No. You get what love is.
That would be
funny.
Like,
okay.
That would be funny if it's like some like modern intellectual just being like, I don't know, Shakespeare. This is fucking whack. I'm writing this in my newspaper. He's like, oh yeah.
Have you seen Othello?
You
will in like 10 years.
So then. So you will from somewhere within this 10-year range, because they won't have a clear date in history about this, because some of the records will be lost.
You sound like Rick from Rick and Morty.
So Amelia confesses to everything, and and thus outs Iago. So there's a couple of like very weird choices that were made.
Oh,
right
we
here
gotta talk about that.
that really takes some of the wind out of the sails of this last scene.
Because
and it's
honestly,
unfortunate because it's not the actor's fault.
And it was an amazing production overall. It just left us with a slightly weird taste in our mouth.
It's funny,
these two technical things.
Exactly. I will give this production like give it all the times I've seen Othello, again, which is like one production a buttload of times, and seeing how alive a production could be and how much it can shift from the first performance to the last performance. So that was enlightening for me. And two, all the different movie productions and like a few other stage productions I've seen.
Right.
I have really struggled with trying to get on board with this play and just to understand what happened. This play not only made it crystal clear what was going on, but also like why, and it made me believe a lot more things that I didn't think I could even like believe and like beyond that. So I'll give this production a 9.5 as far as like hitting the target. What we're struggling is whether we like the target. Exactly. We think the target is maybe really fucked up.
Right. We're not. Yeah. I think so. I think it might be really fucked up.
So given that, like all the actors and like the people put on this production on fucking knocked it out of the park. We're complete. We are looking past this production to the text and being like, what's happening?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, in this last scene, a couple of things happen, and it's very technical wise. It's very like blocking wise or prop wise that takes some of the wind out of the sails. So it's like, and I think they have really big effects, even though they seem like small things.
Yeah.
First thing, we have to understand that Desdemona is in the process of outing Iago. So he has
Wait, you mean Amelia?
I'm sorry, not Desdemona. Amelia.
She's dead.
My bad. She did.
Paul.
Amelia is in the purpose of...
Consider it. She's right there, Paul.
Amelia is in the purpose of like outing Iago's plan. So Iago has every reason to like shut her up. So he tries to be like, get out of here. And she's like, no. And then he's like, I'm gonna hit you. And then he goes up to her and then like doesn't hit her and just stops. And I'm like, he has no reason to not hit her right now. Everything, he even motioned, he tried to pull a gun on her, and then everybody
were like, don't. And he was like, oh, okay.
And then he put it back in his poster.
He should have shot her.
And he shoots her at the end. So like, he is not morally conflicted on whether or not he's going to kill her. But the stupid thing is that he waits until she confesses and outs him to kill her.
He could have been fine, maybe.
So he pulls his gun. Which, like in the other productions I've seen, he pulls a sword and everybody like holds him back.
Right.
Like they should.
Yes.
So he pulls the gun as she starts talking and then inexplicably puts it back in his holster and then motions to hit her, but stops and then just looms 1 inch from her as she continues her story with no one holding him back.
And he's like a head taller than her, so he's just kind of like standing, like looming over her, looking down at her face. But not touch, like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you.
Harry Potter was off stage and was like, Petrificus Totalis!
Right.
And he just like, just froze and he doesn't know what to do.
Like the whole time that she is revealing his plot and that he is implicated in all of this.
It's so bad. And I'm like, that is the worst choice ever. There was like 2 or 3 military dudes standing behind her who are on her side.
Yes.
And wanting to find out what's happening. And so she's about to say, I have the truth. And then he's like motions to, and he just looms. I'm like, that was the worst blocking choice I've ever seen.
Uh-huh.
All those motherfuckers should have been holding him back. And then they can have him break loose if they need.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first huge misstep that was like, I would be hesitant to nitpick. That was just so bad that it just like, I was like, what is happening right now? Like, so I think we're pretty safe in like having that gripe. And the second thing that happens is that, so after she outs him and inexplicably doesn't do anything, and then he breaks free, then they hold him back, or like he pulls a gun and shoots her and then leaves after she confessed everything. And then he runs and they all chase him away. And then Othello is by himself and he gets locked in there by like one of the governor people, and he's like, come in, I'm not,
that part was weird too.
He's like, I know I'm the bad guy here, like I'm my adrenaline's faded, I got a weapon, but I'm not gonna hurt you with it.
No, he doesn't say he has a weapon. He says he doesn't have a weapon, but he pulls out this sword that's a ceremonial sword.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of things happen. So he pulls out the ceremonial sword and talks about it.
Which is questionably sharpened?
Yeah, and like, okay, let me back up a little bit. He pulls out the ceremonial sword like while everybody's still there, right?
No, everybody's gone. He does it while he's by himself.
Okay, so I was right. So everyone's gone. They were chasing down Iago, who just shot Emilia, and who's in the room now with Othello and Desdemona alone. And she's like, "Lay me by my mistress," and she's like, "Fuck, I'm dying," and she just fucking dies in the bed. And then Othello pulls out, he's like, "I have a sword. It's from Spain, and it's like fucking ceremonial, and we think it's sharpened, and we know Othello's gonna kill himself at the end." So we're like, "Is he gonna kill himself with this sword?" And then everybody comes back.
Yeah, it felt like a game of like, which thing will he use?
Everybody comes back because they catch Iago and they bring him back. And then everybody's like, "Iago, what's up, bro? Why'd you do this?" And he's like, "Fuck you. What you know, you know. After this, I ain't gonna say nothing else." And so like, I thought that was like a pretty telling line about like, I never told you anything that wasn't true. Like and I thought that line it seemed like it would have hit home a lot more if he never lied.
I think you have this really interesting idea of him never lying. You should write that play.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to force it that direction.
But
he's like, "What you know, you know. I ain't saying shit else," and that's it.
Yeah.
And then Othello,
which is kind of the worst thing he can do at this point. It's like the meanest thing he can do is not reveal anything more about how it all went down.
Yeah,
like it's the only power he has left.
I think right before that though, Othello tries to stab Iago with that sword and like nicks him, and Iago's like, "I'm still alive," and he's like, "Good, I want you to live and fucking suffer through this
Which
shit."
He clearly didn't. He's just trying to.
Honestly, you know what that made me think of? Because the line after that, Othello says like I want you to live, like, you know, like to be dead would be like an escape from this. And I'm like, that's like the fifth play we've watched of Shakespeare where a character envies the dead. Mm-hmm. With Titus,
I thought about that
Romeo,
too with Titus, yeah.
With like that, he keeps coming up like with Hamlet, like with like there's like a like it's like Shakespeare is like weary of the complexity and the drama and the injustice that he probably witnesses or perceives in
all
this life. And to be dead may be dead, but it's like beautifully simple. Like that seems to be the sentiment that he keeps having these characters say throughout the plays. Mm-hmm. So that's fucking morbid. But I mean, it's a prevalent enough feeling that people can like empathize with it.
Yeah.
Especially people in situations like Othello's in.
Right.
So that happens, and then Othello like has the sword again. Yeah, and then like Iago says that like, "I ain't saying shit else. Like fuck y'all." And then everybody's like, "Well, what are we gonna do now?" And then Othello has like this really long, really like calm. I've seen it like played bigger than this, but Othello seems to have been resolved in his suicidal intentions and now just wanting to have like a last speech before he dies. And he has like, you know, "I remember when I fucking like," I don't know what this speech is supposed to mean, but I think he is calling himself like a piece of shit. I think. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So you're talking about
Othello's last speech. He's like, "I remember when I was fighting the enemy.
No, what he's
I
actually
found
saying,
a dog or some shit, and he's like, and I smote him thus," and then he kills himself. Like, what is he saying there?
So basically, what he's saying. So the first part of that speech is him being like, "You're inevitably going to write home about this. You're going to tell other people what you saw here and what I did. When you do, say what I did wrong, but don't exaggerate it based on, you know, your preconceived notions of me or based on hatred. Tell them plainly what I did. I don't want you to embellish it." You know, and I think the implication is based on you being racist. I'm pretty sure that's the implication. It's like, tell them what happened. Don't like add to it and be ridiculous.
Yeah,
you know,
that's funny.
Yeah, and then
that guilty. Sorry.
And then the other thing.
Immature.
It's okay, you're allowed. Then the other thing he says is so the thing he's saying is I like, if they ask what happened here, tell them I took the dog and smote him thus. Like, I killed myself, like the bad person that you're talking about. The thing you can say of me that's good is that I killed him.
Yes, that makes sense. I misinterpreted that. I wasn't following the language throughout that entire speech, but that makes sense what you're saying. And now that you're saying it, I remember it. Yeah, he does. From the moment that all the senators come in and shit, he starts speaking of himself in the third person. And you're like, where, Othello, what'd you do? He's like, the person who was Othello, I'm him.
Yeah.
Like he considers himself not to be that person anymore. And he references it twice, the second time being the time you're talking about. He's like, and I smote him thus. And so here's the second big fucking miss that this play did. And like, I'm not a doctor, but here, let me just talk about this. Like he has this big ass ceremonial sword, and I'm just assuming he's gonna just like, and it's long. It's like it's longer than the length of his arm. So to stab yourself with it might be a little awkward to try to like, pull the hilt and then have the sword be like too long to like be longer than the distance from your arm to your stomach. But so they decided to go the route of him pulling out like a little flip out knife, it's
basically an X-Acto knife. Like it's around that size.
It's probably about 2 inches, and he just flips it out like like a pocket knife. You plug it in. It's like a mean looking pocket knife, like a military person might use, but it's not gonna kill you just by stabbing yourself once. So he stabs himself with this little knife. It's like the size of your your pointer finger, and he's like,
not even.
He's like, and I smote him thus. No, it's about that size. It's about that. He's like, but even that, I smote him thus, and he stabs himself with it. I'm like, me and you both cringe. I'm like, you'd have to be like,
I said you should drag it.
You did say you should drag it, but I mean, like, he didn't drag it. He just stabs himself one time with it, and I'm like, I mean, I guess you could hit your liver, you could hit your kid, you can hit a vital organ, and cause yourself some real problems with that, but you're not gonna die in a couple of minutes from that. You're and I thought he was gonna drag it across himself too, like maybe open up his abdomen, and so not expecting guts to fly out like it's a zombie movie, but if we're supposed to suspend disbelief and believe somebody killed themselves, like, I would have rather him taken a big sword and just put it in between his armpit and called it good than that little ass knife. And he died and crawled in the bed in like 30 seconds, and I'm like, oh, no. You're not dead. So that was unfortunate because that's a big moment, and you need everything to go right for that moment to work.
Yeah.
And it almost did. But that really is a little cringy. And so those are two unfortunate missteps, I think, in the blast, like touchdown run of that play. Yeah. But besides that, everything that was so good, that was completely forgivable.
Yeah, I think, and this is not to make an excuse for it, as it's all not to be an excuse for it, but I think that, this play is very long, and my guess is they, really hammered out scene by scene, and the last scene might have gotten the least attention.
I think maybe.
I think it's very possible.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the allocation of time and resources and energy for that stuff is
hard.
Probably, just getting it off on its feet is probably super hard.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it sounds close to an excuse, but I'll let it
it's
pass.
Not.
I'll let it pass this time. But anyway, it was still really fucking good. What
if I said, did that? Do better. Is that more helpful? Yeah. But it was really good. You're right. Sorry.
I mean, I don't think I have never seen a better production of Othello than this.
No, same.
And I still find myself feeling just as uncomfortable as I did with the other ones. So
I would say more uncomfortable. I feel more uncomfortable.
I have a higher resolution, and I'm just more worried that it didn't shift anything. I'm like, I thought once I understood this play better, it would be like, oh, just like it's happened with other plays. Like, I didn't get Romeo and Juliet for the longest time. I saw a really good production, and I'm like, I feel like I can I'm on board now. I can see what's happening. I can fill in the gaps where it didn't crystallize it perfectly, but I get where it's going. The constellation is clear enough for me to see the picture. Yeah. This thing, Othello is like, what the fuck? Why do we tell this story? What is useful and what wisdom can be draw from this? What mirror is holding up to society? What are we trying to say? Is it racist? Is it not? Is it relevant? Is it just there to make me uncomfortable for no reason? Like it stands almost alone in stories that I find technically proficient and like good. Like I'm like, this is clearly a work of art and it takes a lot of talent to pull this off, but yet I can't derive anything that I consider like clearly valuable or like wise or even like that entertaining from it. Like I'm struggling. I'm really struggling to find something that I like about the play in and of itself, not the execution of it, but like the overall, like or that I find to ring true. There's things like I don't like. It's almost a lot of things, but not quite anything that I can see.
I feel you. I agree with all of that. I agree with all of those questions, and me with my role on this podcast, I want to answer them all, and I don't know the answers to any of them. I have no answers. And like we were talking about this before, we were like deciding, should we record this now? Should we like, look at some more scholarly articles or something? And I think this is just good because it's our honest reaction of like, I don't know any of those answers.
Yeah, and that's I think we came to the conclusion that's the conceit of this podcast. Like we want we need to decide, or not need to decide, but like are asking the question of like how
does it hit us?
Do you need to be just to understand one of these productions? Like does it need, like, I think we believe you should, like, a lot of them already do exist in such a way that they are relevant in today's world, and where they don't, we think they should take the tweaks and the key turns in order to just like have the lens of a slightly more modern perspective to like say what they think the point of the play is, without having to stay true to all the very specific nuts and bolts. Mm-hmm. And this one, even if you do update it enough, even if you do like make all these people have motivations and circumstances that make sense of what they did, the more obtuse and broad point still is like elusive and uncomfortable for no apparent reason to me.
Yeah.
So I'm open to the possibility that I'm just missing it, but man, I'm missing it by a mile. Mm-hmm. So, man, this is a heavy episode, but
I feel heavy. Man, thank God we got through that last scene with some levity, because I don't know how I would have gotten through it. It's rough. It's rough. I'm gonna leave this as an open book for now in my mind of like, I want to be convinced. I want to have someone say to me like, this is why we do this play, and if we approach it from this direction, it'll make total sense. Mm-hmm. And like it'll bring to light some truths about humanity that we need to be talking about or something.
Yeah.
But I don't quite know what that is right now. I feel like this is my job. I feel a little bit like, not like I failed, but because I'm being honest, but I think that's the longer term striving. But I do feel like I'm like,
Yeah, it's like the opposite of Taming of the Shrew. It's true. You went into it thinking you didn't like it, and coming out loving it, and you went into this one thinking you liked it, and you're like, I don't know.
I don't know anymore.
But we're. I'm not sorry, but I do wish it was a little bit like I feel like we just went on an expedition and like happened to not come back with anything this time.
Yeah.
But like that's always the risk with the pursuit of discovery. You might not discover anything.
Yeah.
So we're trying to
It's about the journey.
We're trying to not lie to ourselves to tell ourselves that we like it. Like I feel like that's easy to do with Shakespeare. Just be like, oh, it's so groundbreaking, it's so relevant, and like
I definitely don't. I would never want to say any of these plays are groundbreaking or relevant, or that I like them without it being true.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe this is about us proving to ourselves, me specifically, that we don't have to like every Shakespeare play, or that we don't have to understand every Shakespeare play on the 15th crack. For
sure. I think honestly, I think that in itself creates like that's the utility of like this conversation. I think I'm sure a lot of people have these conversations. I just don't. I feel like it's not like openly expressed in the public space enough that I don't have to fucking like this play, or I don't have to think this production is good. But like all of the conflict of interest and all of the pressure is there for everybody who's a part of it and who everybody was there to just be like, it's really good. Like the only people who actually openly express that's their job to express a poor play is like critics, or like or when we have private conversations at home.
Right. And we're not critics, and we're just humans.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, again, this production was amazing.
Yeah, this production was amazing. I don't know if I like this play anymore.
We are. I think I'll speak. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for both this when I say we are worried about this play.
That is the perfect description. We are worried about this play.
Anyway, I think we said all that we could say. I think we're kind of just like circling around right now.
Me too.
But I hope we'll hit on some more useful things next time. But until next time,
I'm Chloe Baldwin.
I'm Paul Stafford.
And we hope the gap just got a little bit smaller.
Arise, black vengeance from thy hollow cell. Yield up, O love, thy crown and hearted throne to tyrannous hate. Swell bosom with thy fraught, for 'tis of aspects tongues.
Thanks for listening to Shakeshero. You can check out our website and email us your suggestions at shakeshero.com, or you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the handle Shakeshero. We're on Spotify and Apple Music, so please review, subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.